Features, and you're listening to ShowX Live with Ken in his student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wayne in his white windowless van? Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Nah, so the reason I was there at the intro is that for whatever reason I'm going to have to probably come here and update things. The Stream Deck controls that I use to switch scenes didn't. And so I hit the button. I looked at it and was like, it's still on the other screen. Same thing happened when I first hit the intro piece. So I may have to go back in there and just double check that all the connections for it are correct. Because I've been relying on it ever since I got that thing set up and installed. So I'm like, what just happened? Some parts worked, but some didn't. I wonder if it's because I have the multi on there now and they did an update. Anyhow, I will have to check that out. So, hey there, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's 2 p.m. the East, 7 p.m. GMT on this Sunday, the 24th of November, 2019. Alrighty. Yeah, we are kicking through it. It's actually, so what's fun about here in the U.S., that means it is the beginning of Turkey Murder Week this week, as it is Thanksgiving, and it is time for, I will say, as I tell all of my friends, especially those from other countries and such who have not experienced it before, so you as well, Ken, that this is gluttony season here in the United States of America. Starts earlier.
I thought it was always gluttony season here.
See, not at all. That is a misrepresentation that if that is how you gauged it, then I don't know what you would call this season because it's about to get even more. I will say from my perspective at work this week, we already started things in that, wow, we had our crew feast kind of thing get together where because most people are off on Thanksgiving itself this week, as a crew at work to celebrate, we had our potluck last week, the Thursday before, to get together, bring in food, and actually spend some time kind of just hanging out together and taking a moment away from work, which was nice. You know, it's like camaraderie and things, something to do in the office. And in it, though, we brought so much food. Everyone was trying to be, I don't know what the right word was. We knew we were trying to bring enough food to share. But I think this happens in almost every one of these kind of group potluck things, is you always bring enough food to share with everyone, but so does everyone else. And so in doing so, you end up with, oh, well, normally on my plate, I would have, 4 or 5 different things to choose from, fill up a plate and be content. But you've now had maybe 10, or in our case, like 12 people bring, enough food that you would want on your plate as well. So you have such a variety and so much of it. And so we had food for all of that day on Thursday, as well as I worked Friday and leftovers Friday as well, because I made a nice big green bean casserole, which so enjoy this time of year. And going into what will be even more so this week, where I actually had to go through, the challenge of having to decide which of the friends' Thanksgiving celebrations I wanted to attend this week. So I'm sticking with the one that I chose first, the one that invite and everything got out first. It's going to be probably the biggest. But then I had so much desire to go to other ones because my friend Kadigma, his family, smaller group, but they make a lot of their food is influenced by his wife being Filipino, and so they'll have things like pancit and such, which is so good. And there's a temptation, like, do I go for the food, specifically the type, or the prior assumed obligation that I said, no, I'll totally go to this one. So I'm being good. I'm going to the one that I said I would go to first. But man, the desirement for other foods. Anyhow, and it's gluttony season because we go straight off from, the teaser on Halloween with just sweets everywhere to Thanksgiving for mass amounts of food to continuing on through into Christmas, where it continues even further to finish off with New Year's with large consumptions of alcohol. So this is the season of gluttony. Anyhow, Ken, how are you doing today?
Thank you for asking. I'm good. I've been sort of getting into the understanding of this Thanksgiving thing that's going on. It's a little confusing. Yeah, turned out we had our potluck on Friday. I'm not part of the email lists or all of them yet, I guess.
Well, okay, you've
Because
been here how long?
well, yeah, I've been here for a week, right? So the thing is, I'm not even my file's not been pushed through HR yet, right? Basically, the reason is that it's a long story, but the basis of it is that my file that I originally signed to accept the contract was on a certain day. Then my visa didn't come through till later, so I had to push my original contract forward a couple of days. So once I landed here, I came in and signed that instead of signing in advance like I'm supposed to. So instead of giving it 2 weeks to get through HR before I start, it's going through HR now. So I'm
Gotcha.
not really a full employee yet, which is weird. I've got my computer, I've got my office keys, so I've got the things that really matter. I might not get paid for a month.
Ah!
That's fine.
Oh
It's
gosh.
just one of those things. It'll be fine. Same with my social security and stuff. It's kind of on hold right now, but it's fine. It's all in hand, and it'll come eventually. But as such, yeah, I'm not. I'm also not on all the email lists, and I can't access all the systems. Um, so it's been a bit of a pain getting all that started. But as such, on Friday I came in and yeah, everybody had all this food in the staff room, and I was just standing there holding my sandwich box, like, I'm willing to share my sandwich if you want. And they were like, come join in, don't you worry. And they were very kind about
Oh
it.
yeah, no, it's one of
Um,
the times that's usually very generous, especially amongst office mates and such. So, but that's good to hear because hopefully that meant you got to consume some good holiday cuisine.
Not so much. So okay, this is the other thing that's kind of funny about my situation. I I work in the animal science department here, right?
Yes.
Now, for the animal science department, this is one of the biggest in the world, by the way. This is a massive animal science department. But the specific like research group that I'm in is in genetics for animals. And what that means is it's all about breeding animals in certain ways in order
Yeah.
to, increase certain traits, right?
Yes. Like
So, for
tastiness.
example, marbling in beef, right? That's important. The height and the weight of things, the lack of disease, all that sort of stuff. So it's a very meat-centric department, right? Like
Yeah.
our research group, really meat-centric. In fact, my first day here, everybody had there was a like I said last week, there was a steak tasting day, and I was like sort of standing at the side, just sort of being awkward, drinking my water, saying, "Do you guys have a salad?" Um, so yeah, the same with Thanksgiving. There was a lot of most of the
Meat.
dishes were very meat centric. I mean, there's some salad leaves on the side. I was like, "It's fine. I'll just have my sandwich. Don't worry about it. It's all good." So yeah, my getting used to the US has been an ongoing thing, and I should probably mention it somewhat. So first of all, you may notice that I'm actually in front of the computer now. Hopefully, the quality of the audio is fairly good. Using the full power of my Blue microphone again. I'm not using my standard webcam. I'm instead using the one that's built into this iMac. So I don't know if that looks all right, and hopefully it looks okay. I don't know what the specs are for it. Um, and yeah, I'm using an iMac, which is really weird. It's got this dumbass thing here, right?
Ooh.
This is a magic mouse. It's been okay for day-to-day use. I've had no problems with it until today. Uh, I mean, I've been using it 9 to 5 at least every single day for a week now, and it's still 97% battery. I'm quite impressed by that. That's pretty good. It does look very sleek. It's a sleek looking device. I like the fact that you can right click, left click as you expect, and you can also scroll up and down sort of like this to do scroll motion, right? Which is quite cool. It's quite futuristic. The problem is, it's just a bit of a crap mouse in terms of DPI. I find myself like saying, "Okay, go left," and it'll ignore some of that movement, and I'll only go half as much as I expect, or 3/4 as much
Ah.
as I expect. We tried playing some League earlier, and yeah, it was. And before that, I played some Dying Light. It was impossible to play Dying Light. I could not do that. My computer handled it okay, surprisingly. You'd think Mach, what the hell? But my boss is kind of amazing. Let me read you the specs. I think this is the same one here. Um, It's a 5K display, so 5,120 by 2880, which
Nice.
is incredible. It's the first time I've ever seen my photography in full resolution. That was really weird. And when I went through my whole gallery actually earlier this week, like all of the few hundred photos that I've actually liked over the years, and found that I'd completely rearranged which ones are my favorite.
Interesting.
Some of the ones that are my favorite had like slight motion blur that I couldn't see on my phone or my previous laptop screen. But when I saw it in the full glorious resolution of this iMac, I was suddenly thinking, yeah, those are no longer my favorite photos. But instead, some of the photos that I sort of thought were okay before, I'm now like basking in their sharp glory, and suddenly I appreciate them a lot more. So that's really changed my specs of that. I'm now using a 3.4 gigahertz quad-core Intel Core i5 with 6 meg L3 cache, which is pretty crazy per processing power. Even as an i5, that's pretty powerful. It's got 8 gig of RAM, but it supports up to 64 gig, and apparently I can get the upgrade if I want it. That's insane. It's got a 1 terabyte Fusion drive. I don't actually know what that means. Is that an SSD or is it not?
Well,
an SSD?
so usually those are type of hybrid drives where they have a small portion of it that's SSD at the front end, and then the rest of it's a platter drive. And so it's usually used as a way to automatically cache often used files to make them act a little more like an SSD, but it's usually small. Anywhere from 25 to 50 gig is usually what the hybrid portion of it is. That's actually what my laptop has. So it's good in the sense that it usually keeps the OS stuff on it. So it'll boot fast-ish, but it's not truly an SSD in most cases. Could be, but when I hear Fusion, it makes me think of the classic hybrid drives. So
I don't know, but that's still pretty neat though. Even when I was launching Dying Light and Light even earlier, which is quite a big game, it just launched. It just started straight away. So I just assumed it was an SSD because of that. And it's got a Radeon Pro 570 with 4 gig of VRAM. I sort of assumed that was going to be bad. Until I did a benchmark of that against my 1050 Ti on my laptop, checked online to see the differences, and yeah, this actually outperforms my laptop. So not only is it better it's got the same amount of RAM, but it's got more graphical processing, way more standard processing. Even though I've got an i7 on my laptop, it's nowhere near that kind of power behind it. And the screen of this thing is just gorgeous. I can't get over just how pretty it is. It's really changed. It's also been fun to return to some old Mac stuff. So I had a MacBook Pro, many years ago, and I liked it. It was fine. I enjoyed it. But one of the favorite things I liked with Macs is that they have there's a bit of software you can download called Geek Tool. Geek Tool is this specialized bit of software. It's a bit like window blinds, that kind of thing, but it's a bit more codey. So you can code your own geeklets, they're called. Basically, it's a way of customizing your desktop to have certain widgets that you can make and create. So it can link into other services. So, for example, you can have like an RSS feed that populates automatically. You can have clocks. You can have Spotify controls that are interactive. You can have pretty much everything. But I actually tried to install it here, but I've noticed that a lot of the geeklets just didn't work or they're out of date. Geek Tools has kind of fallen behind the curve, it seems. But I found this German tool called Übersicht, which I was a little put off at first. I speak a little German, so I thought it might be okay. So I decided to try it. But it's actually entirely in English. It's just called Übersicht. And it has some nice widgets that you can find on the libraries online. And I've got a couple installed now that automatically show me my calendar. It automatically pings 3 different servers and every second and shows me the update on my desktop so I can get an idea of how the internet's going. So, for example, right now my DNS is getting pinged for a ping of 8, which I believe is milliseconds. BBC is 12, which is pretty nice. And yeah, just a couple of things like that. And it's nice to sort of customize your computer and make it feel like it's yours, right? And I like my desktop being informative, not interactive. I mean, a computer is already very interactive. The UI is already very interactive. But on Windows Explorer is all you really need to access all your files. You don't need a desktop. And same with OS X, you have Finder. You can access everything through that. You don't need a desktop. So I don't like having icons. It annoys the crap out of me having icons. I think they're ugly and they're just lazy. So I disable icons as soon as I get any computer. And I install something like this instead so that my desktop's a nice informative backdrop. So that if I'm, sitting reading a book or writing something out, and I glance up at my screen, I can get some useful information instead of just seeing an array of useless files that just make me slightly anxious. So I got this Mac's been a really big benefit of the job, and it's been nice having a computer again, so that I can actually just do some of our day-to-day stuff and here do the show. The great thing is it's an office with 3 people in here, including myself. But they obviously I don't tend to work on Saturdays and Sundays, so for now I can come in here and make use of the uninterrupted internet and the beautiful iMac, which is nice. Other than that, Americanisms. Let's kick off this American segment.
Yeah. It's
sponsored, not really, but sponsored in no official manner by
currently fueled.
Bangs? Is that called Bangs?
Oh, this is wonderful. This is great. That is Barks Root Beer.
Oh, it's a Q. I can see it in the back. Barq's. Okay, Barq's.
Barks?
You should have a U after that.
No, it's just Barks.
Barq's. That's what it's called. It's called Barq. If they have a Q in their name, it's Barq. So Barq's root beer, artificially flavored, of course, because it's America. It's good. That's a terrible slogan. Is that really their slogan? It's good. Well, it's straight to the point, at least.
They're not lying.
They could have said consumable beverage. A consumable dark liquid. That would have also been an adequate. Yeah. Okay. So I'll try this out. I've heard of root beer, and I've had a couple of cans of it in the past, but it's it's in Britain, so I don't know how much different that's actually to the real thing, because we have health standards and food and safety standards in the UK. So let me just try this.
What are you trying to say, Ken?
Barq's root beer. I think I've said what I'm trying to say.
Right. You know what? As we're talking about this, let's see. How do I want to do this?
That's quite nice, actually.
So, Ken, would you say it's good?
And I'm 0% surprised by the fact that the second highest ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah.
There's water and syrup. That's the majority of it. Oh, my God.
So I jokingly will say this, but at the same time, I laugh at it heavily because my foreign friends that I work around, one of the comments they've made one of them very recently continues to make that I have to accept and laugh at and kind of agree with, is that all things in America are just corn. That's what she says.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about when you were talking about the Twinkie filling and such, and I had mentioned that story to her, she was like, "Well, no, there's no cream in that. It's corn. It's all just corn."
Yeah.
And so it made me laugh, but at the same time, I was like, "You're not lying. Like, that's not false." And so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I really want to do is find a way of having a diet here that includes no corn syrup. That's kind of my plan. I want to try and exclude that kind of crap from my diet as much as possible, because I've seen the documentaries. I know what it does to your health, and I know what it's been doing to the health of the entire US population. And I don't really want to be a part of that. I'm hoping that one of the few things I can bring from my motherland, my home country of yore, is the idea that food should actually be made of food and not hyper-processed corn.
Now, we talked about it a bit before, Ken. I am a massive fan of that. I would love if we didn't have nonsense, corn syrup and everything in the United States, and actually get to natural sugars where they matter, and let's get to just no added sugar if it's not needed, because we oversugar everything in this country, as well as no artificial colors. That's the one that really bugs me, because there is no nutritional value to colors. It's something that they do just for appeal, and I wish Americans could just get a little more used to what food really looks like and therefore not need them all. And so, yes. And it's funny, Ken, as you put the chat icons in, when you look at it from like the condensed like screen,
I know, I saw that.
it looks great. But when you look at it from the stream chat, it looks interesting.
It just looks like mess.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
Uh,
So before I continue on to through this segment, I want to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, or actual sponsors this time, not a fake sponsor, which is Audible. We've had, I think, 5 people now have signed up from what I've seen, so I appreciate you guys doing that. And this is the best time of year actually to sign up for Audible, because right now they actually have their Black Friday sale on, and that means that you can sign up with the link that I'll put in the chat just now, right there. You'll get your 1 free ebook, and you can cancel it straight away if you want, etc., etc. But you also get access to all the sales they have on just now. They have a few really good books, including Stephen King's It, which is now available for less than the price of a credit. So the way it works with Audible is you get you can pay, minimum you can do is, I think, is 1 credit a month, and that's something like $10, right? And then you get a credit which you can use on any book, regardless of price. So you can get one that's $55. Like I recently got what was it? War and Peace. You know, that ridiculously long.
Oh yes.
Like, I would call it novel, the tome, right? I decided that's something that I should read in my life at some point. So I got that. It's 55 hours long. I think it's something like £60 or $60 to buy by itself. If you use a credit, you just get it for a credit, which is $10, which is fantastic. But as well as that, there's also a store you can check out and spend money as well, and instead of or with a credit, right? With the Black Friday sales, it's kind of a waste to use your credit on something that's cheaper than a credit. Like, why spend $10 on something that's $5, right? So you can. The good thing of the Black Friday sale is instead of wasting money with a credit, you can actually put real money into the Audible store and get something for cheaper. So that was a really good time to sign up if you're interested in bulking up your library. That's the kind of thing I like to do. I originally signed up. I had a normal subscription for about 6 months. A sale came on, and I bought like 15 books, and now I'm fine for another year or so. I don't pay per month anymore. I don't need to. I've got the library there, and even when you unsubscribe, you still have full access to all of your books. You do lose any credits that you haven't used, though, so make sure you use your credits.
Yeah,
But,
once you sign up, make sure you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So check out Audible via that link. We'd very much appreciate it. It helps us out. And like I said, I read a lot. Like I read a lot of audiobooks, or listen to a lot of audiobooks, I should say. So it's a sponsor that we're always happy to tout, because it is awesome. And I'll talk about my books that I've been reading soon enough as well. Back to the American stuff segment.
Yes. And for those who follow us on social media, on the face cracks, I just posted, I was inspired, Ken, by what you were saying about your desktop. And I wasn't sure if I did this more as a way to, I don't know, react to what you stated about wanting such a clean desktop and no icons and such. I posted a screen snap of what my desktop looks like essentially right now, so that people can see what my desktop looks like when I'm running the show.
Oh, wait. Wait a minute.
So that's two monitors.
That's nice.
That's 2 monitors.
That's fine.
The one on the left there is
that's making use of your space. That's fine.
And the one on the right's like
I see the icons.
They're on the side, but part of it is because I've got a 4K monitor that's so big. I mean, it's massive. And so those icons, even though they're on the desktop there, they're off to the side. And so I don't even see them until I go looking for the specific ones I want. No, but it was more like a reaction to what you said. I was like, because I know a lot of people who love their nice, clean desktops, like you said. And so that just...
So, I angry reacted to it. One of the things I wanted to... Another one of the apps I should probably mention, actually. The reason why I don't need... I've actually hidden my dock as well, because that way my screen is completely clear to look at whatever I want to. And the reason that I do this is because I don't actually... I don't like using a mouse if I have to. I'd rather type to get where I want to go to.
Interesting.
And there's this really, really nice app that you can get for OS X, for Macs. I don't know if there's a Windows version. There probably is. But it's called Alfred. Alfred is this fantastic app where you can choose the hotkey. For me, it's Option space. So it's kind of like pressing Windows space. And what that does is a little window pops up that just looks like a text box with a little top hat next to it, and I can type into it. So, for example, right now I'm going to start typing Steam. So I type in ST, and it shows a bunch of recommendations of what I'm probably going to choose. And the top one is Steam. So if I hit enter right now, it would open Steam for me. This works for files, for websites, for apps, and I found it so incredibly useful. It means that if I have something installed or some file available that I have used in the past and want to get to quickly, I don't need to like the equivalent of going to Windows, all programs, finding the app or what. I can just type. I love that. And so my mouse is only used to navigate within each program, not to navigate between programs. And it's a minor efficiency thing, but it makes the computer feel more like my computer.
Okay.
And I like that customizability.
So it's interesting because it reminds me of the interactions you get just from the Windows search bar that's in Windows 10 that you can just start typing in there. Now, I will admit, doesn't always work because I have some software, and partly why I still have some icons and shortcuts set up is because I have software still on my computer that Windows doesn't understand is installed because there's some legacy things that aren't necessarily fully compatible with Windows 10. And so there's some things I literally have to go manually launch. And so I'll sometimes keep shortcuts on the screen for those kind of things and some others.
Yeah.
I've run into some interesting things like that. But no, I got you. And I'm not suffering anybody for the decisions they do on how they lay out their desktops or how they use them. Because like I said, I know a lot of people that keep it clean. One of the things you might not really have noticed in mine is that like just above the Streamlabs broadcast software part of it, I have Rainmeter installed. And so with Rainmeter allows you to do also that same kind of thing where you can customize your backdrop and everything. And so in doing so, I have like CPU, RAM monitors, network monitors, usage, and all that on the screen over where I have the broadcast software here where I'm monitoring the chat, the stream, everything like that. And then on the other screen where I do basically all the referencing is the tools I'm not using constantly, like Voicemeter where I'm changing out our audio back and forth to Winamp, which is mostly just up to be able to play the software and stuff we do through Stream Deck and everything, as well as the actual Skype call for UN and things like that. And so I kind of have it split out in such a way that I have my useful information for the show, bam, right here in front of me, and then ancillary information all over it. I don't know, but I don't blame anyone. The only time I will judge is when people who don't understand what they're doing, because, God, the fact that it still happens, people adding ad bars, search bars to their browsers, I will criticize you forever if you do that. It all goes back to the one time when I was in college still, and someone was complaining in a group next to it, and we're in computer science curriculum, that their browser was running super slow, and I opened up their laptop's browser just to look for it real quick, and there were like 8 or 9 add-on search bars, all active at the same time. And I was like, what? What is this? And they were just like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah, the number of times I was handed computers when I was like 12 years old from family members and like neighbors and friends who were like, my computer's running slow, I don't know why. And I'd be like, okay, give it here. And the first thing I would do is I'd run through Internet Explorer, take away every single possible add-on that's there. I would then hide Internet Explorer after downloading Chrome. But I would actually hide all the desktop like links to it. I'd take away the icons. And the first thing they ask when I hand it back over, they'd be like, where's the internet gone? And I'd be like, okay, the internet's still on it. You still can access the internet. But, now you use this one. And I think it was my gran or my aunt. I can't remember. It was some family member once said to me, no, I want the internet back. Give me back Internet Explorer. So I changed Google Chrome's shortcut icon to IE, and then they were like, "That's much better." I'm like, "Yeah, clearly."
You're so wrong. Oh, I understand what you did. That's hilarious. For me, that was the classic thing back when dial-up was still the common access, where when you would first update people, and like when we've got beyond front ends to dial-in internet, where you could just dial an internet provider and jump on through your browser, but people were still saying, "Wait, where'd the internet go? Where's AOL?" Right? That kind of thing. Or Prodigy, man, back in the day. All of those kind of front ends for your entire internet experience, and they would still do that. I was just like, yep, that's awful.
Oh, that's
For
funny.
everybody interested, I put a link in the Twitch chat there. It's called WalkWox, WOX. It's a really nice little. It's pretty much the exact same as Alfred. In fact, it looks almost exactly the same as well. But it allows you to do the same kind of things where you can easily, with a quick couple of hotkeys, you can fly around Windows. It pre-indexes a lot of the things that you frequently search through. And if you actually go to that GitHub page that I linked, if you scroll down slightly, you can see this nice little GIF of this person showing them using it to find specific files in their environment. They're also using it to use certain services. For example, if you type G space, then start typing, it will use Google to search for that. So you don't need to open up Chrome and then begin typing. You can do it all from this one place, which is really neat. So,
Nice.
yeah, I think that it's a minor thing. But if you're like me and you like use a computer for both all of your activities, leisurely as well as at work, you can probably save a few hours a year by using this kind of software, right? And like it means that you can be a bit more efficient, and that's who doesn't want to be more efficient if they can help it. All right, so more American stuff. On
Yeah.
Monday, I went to my first ever basketball game, which is also my first ever American sports game, which was quite a rarity. Because I don't like sports, right? I'm not a sporty guy. I've always said that I hate sports, to be honest. And whenever people talk about it, I will respond in a nearly hostile manner and try to avoid the conversation as much as I can. Because it's never even been a case of like I feel nothing towards it. I had an active dislike. I was like, no, thank you, not interested. However, that's started to change because I've now experienced American sports. And while I absolutely despise the advertising that went on there, like that was insane. Like you couldn't look anywhere without seeing an advertisement.
Oh,
And every
everything.
single thing that happened, the announcer was like, and now sponsored by Coca-Cola Zero. You can find Coca-Cola Zero in the lobby. If you go there, it's $2.99 for but. And I was like, for God's sake, this is horrific. Couldn't escape the ads. That really, really irritated me. But there was so much entertainment. Like that's the one thing that you guys really got down with these kind of events is that it's so entertaining. Even when you're like, there's a break for the players to talk to the cameras and to the journalists. As that happens, the cheerleaders run on. There's a band playing. There's like a T-shirt cannon. They're running around with free pizza or something, which is advertising a local pizza joint. All that sort of thing. Like it means that even when there's, every 3 minutes when there's a break, there's something exciting happening. You don't ever feel like you need to go to the bathroom or you have to wait. That's what happens in British sports, right? If it's like half time in a soccer game, you've got like 20 minutes to go to the bathroom and you got to stand in a line for that whole time, or you can sit in your seat and watch nothing and maybe talk to people nearby or something. Like there's no other entertainment, but you guys have got it absolutely down to a T where you just have the best time. And admittedly, the companies are maximizing that time to advertise to you, so it's good for the business to actually try to entertain you as well. The other thing that was really, really key was just how much everybody seems to be enjoying it.
Oh yeah.
Not just because it's such an entertaining thing. I mean, like, again, it's like this. I don't know how to ever put this, how to vocalize this, but it's something I've noticed over the years. The difference between my wife, Kitten Features, and people around us and people I know is a cultural difference. Is that Americans and Brits are massively different in how socially awkward they feel about stuff. Like little things. Like even today when I went and bought that root beer from the dairy store, which is a thing, which is like 10 seconds outside the door for me, which by the way, we don't have dairy stores in the UK, so that was weird to me. There was I just talked to the girl behind the thing, and she was chatting with me and being really friendly and just asking questions about how my day was going and stuff. And then she started singing to a song that was on the background and stuff. And I was like, that would never happen in the UK because somebody would be terrified they may be mocked for for singing along to the song, or if they ask somebody how they're doing, what if it's a crazy person? And we're just also socially awkward and inept in the UK. Whereas here, people are so friendly and nice and able to just keep talking and chatting, and they don't have this self-consciousness that really is the default position in the UK. Everybody's just so bloody self-conscious. Here, people will stand up and dance. They'll cheer. they'll have fun and just have a good time and not be so worried about being bullied. But it feels like in the UK, it's just this inbred thing that we were just constantly anxious what people will think. And I think that's where this whole idea of British politeness almost comes from. I don't think it's this gentlemanly historic thing. I think it's from this socially awkward thing that's pressed into us that you must act in a certain way. If you get on the bus and you talk to the person next to you, you're crazy. There's something wrong with you. Like, you will be mocked and possibly attacked. Like, that's what it's like in the UK. But here, if you get on the bus, everybody's talking to each other. I couldn't believe that. That was such a weird experience for me. Everybody was just having a good time in Chang. That was mental.
I will also say, in a way, Ken, you are in the Midwest, which is traditionally a little more of a friendly, down-home feel of many places. I would say that if you went to some of the bigger cities, you might run into a little more of that, but I think it's more a... Oh, echo. No! I hope I'm not echoing. Or who is echoing? Let's see.
It's usually me. I'm guessing there's...
No, it was me because I was messing around with a source thing, and so that caused another source to come on, which is what usually causes the echo. Right. At least I understand why the echo happens now. So easy to combat. So hopefully that fixed it. I was trying to clean up some other things. I know I shouldn't be trying to fix things on air while we're broadcasting to make things better. So I should just sort that out between episodes, but I see something and I'm like, dang it, I need to fix this thing now. But I would say that in most other like larger cities and stuff, you'll have more people who are as a bit of a defense mechanism about keeping to themselves and stuff like that, where therefore they will look down, they'll be head buried in their phones or whatever they're doing, or only interacting with their local social group for a lot of those same reasons I think that you've mentioned about worrisome about interacting with someone who's going to go off on them or is crazy or things like that, or just interrupting others. It is an interesting difference where if you're in the Midwest, or I'd even say the South in many cases, I think there would be an expectation that people are going to talk to you and be friendly and be like, hey, darling, how's it going?
I love that. Yeah. Even in places like the stores here, it's encouraged, right? You have like greeters at the front, people who will like actively say, "Hey, nice to meet you. How's it going? How's your day? Can I help you with anything? Where are you going?" And they just want to chat, right? They're actually being paid to try and be friendly because obviously monetarily it makes sense because it encourages people to, actively feel like they've had a good time and communicated to people and had a friendly experience there, an enjoyable experience. Obviously, it makes sense from the capitalistic viewpoint. But I mean, as well, I think that's part of the culture is that it's not unusual. If a Walmart opened in the UK and we had greeters, one, good luck trying to find somebody that you can hire that can do that job because there's not many people who can do that.
Oh, we just
don't have that any capability to say hi to anybody.
Oh, gotcha. See, we initially by default just hire old people that are just lonely and want to talk to people. I think that's where it started.
That's a brilliant idea.
And then it went to others along those lines once it became a known thing. But yeah.
Dave, if it works, don't mock it, right? So yeah, that was that basketball game. Anyway, that was kind of a side note. The basketball game itself was awesome fun. We won.
It is okay, Ken. Support your team. Support your school.
I know, right? Like, yeah. Go green, go white. I actually had some feelings of us versus them. I actually kind of felt that tribalism a little bit because there was this. I don't know any terminology, right? There was this player on the enemy team, on the opposing team, who they were losing drastically. They were like 30, 40 points behind. And so they were way behind. They had no chance. And one of our team scored like a slam dunk, and it was the first slam dunk. And so there was this big celebration. Everybody was cheering, and everybody was very happy. And then one of the opposing team guy picked up the ball, and when everybody was walking off the court, he threw it at the guy who did the slam dunk and hit him in the back. And it was just such an unsportsmanship-like thing.
Oh, yeah.
That everybody booed, first of all. And yeah, there was like a foul and everything and all that sort of stuff happened. But what I found really funny was every single time from then on that one player, not that team, but that one player picked up the ball, everybody was going, boo! And whenever he scored or anything, which he did get a couple points after that, stone silence. Not a single person cheered. Nobody wanted to congratulate him for his successes because he was such a douche. And it was such a crazy thing to see and experience. The whole thing was just such a culture shock. When I first walked into the stadium and I looked around, I went, "Wow!" I was like, "This place is massive. There's so many people here." I couldn't quite believe, and this just the furnishing of the place was impressive. I was like, "Wow, this is like upper tier as well." Like in the UK, our stadiums are pretty. A lot of them are pretty large. They can host a lot of people, but I don't know. They're just not. That's pretty much all they're for. They almost look like Eastern European Soviet kind of looking
Soviet
things.
bloc, just they function.
Yeah, just
you
sad,
get this.
sad grades and
Yeah.
steels. That's it, right?
Oh
but
no!
This was all
So this
and-
goes right back to what you said about the marketing and advertising, right? Because the big thing is in America, sports teams, especially even in college, provide massive entertainment and draw to the universities. And so for the big teams, the ones that compete nationally, there is a significant amount of money that goes into their sports programs, and a lot of that goes into their facilities and stuff like that. It's great that Earthweaver's in the chat because he can speak to it since he's a coach at a college.
Of course,
Speak about sports stuff, but sports are a massive part of, I would say, the United States identity. And especially that competitiveness, that being able to go back and forth, because we do it all the way from grade school up into the idea that you can be a professional in sports. And so you'll see that carry through for even those of us like myself who I enjoy sports, especially live, going to a venue, but I don't follow teams and go like, oh, rah, rah, all the time. And, you know, it's, heck, we do our show on a Sunday, which is, during this time of year is, you know, blasphemy in the United States because this is when all the big football teams play. And so, you know, it's not like I need the sports fix, but it is still I enjoy, and you get kind of that, yeah, team thing across the board. And so I am still a fan of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole sports culture is something that I'm starting to get. I've been invited to a rugby match, an actual rugby match. When I told my dad this, he was like, "Surely you mean American football?" I'm like, No. It's actual rugby, apparently.
Oh, we do all the sports here.
Yeah. So I said yes to that, and I'll be going along to that. So it's actually quite nice. I've started to get a bit of a social group here. Not massively. I've not been doing a lot of stuff. It's really just the basketball thing I've been to. But even if it's just the odd sports event, that's great. So basically, my research group, I'm the only, I think, European in the social group. There's one American as well, who's a PhD student, who's not actually a staff member, right? And then there's something like 18 people from mostly South America, but there's a couple also from China, I think. So it's a very, very international research group. The people I share an office with are both Brazilian, and that means that their social group is also pretty much entirely Brazilian, or at least South American. I didn't ask every single one of them where they're from, obviously. But but whenever they're together, they're all speaking Portuguese, right? And they're bouncing off each other. And they said sometimes they move into Spanish, and sometimes they move back and forth. But and then occasionally when I say something, they're like, "Oh yeah, English. We need to speak in English." It was quite funny actually. But yeah, it seems like I've been adopted by like a Brazilian social group, and they're a really nice bunch of people. They're so kind. They paid for my basketball game. They bought me dinner, and then they gave me a lift home. And I was like, "Oh, you guys!"
That is very nice. Welcome.
And I feel like I don't know. It's something that this would be a really weird experience in the UK. Not the niceness. I mean, that would kind of be expected as well. But I mean, the fact that it's such an international group, because in the UK, pretty much I don't really crass here, but pretty much everybody's white, right? Like everybody looks like me, right? That's the thing. Here, it's such an amazing mix of people from around the world, and it's been great because whenever I talk to anybody, I get this diverse set of opinions and viewpoints from, like, we're talking about American healthcare. And yeah, we all agreed though. Even though we're from around the world, we're all like, yeah, this is dumb.
Oh no. So I will say, Ken, it's one of the reasons you'll hear me speak about those from other countries that I get the opportunity to work with, is because I enjoy getting a perspective from outside the border and from people who grew up with entirely different backgrounds. I mean, we get it enough times when I talk about something culturally a part of the United States identity that you just be like, what? I don't get it. And
Yeah.
and similar back and forth. And I think for anybody from any country, because there are things you grow up with that are just so normal and an everyday experience that in most cases we don't even think about it. And unless we have been and spent time in other countries and things like that, you wouldn't know. And so when you do run into those differences, you're just like, why is that a thing? And sometimes it becomes even harder to articulate because it's just such an ingrained known thing for you. That because this is everyday life and it's something you're so used to, you don't think about it. It's just there, right? And so it is an interesting thing that I've run into in multiple times and that I enjoy kind of exploring a little bit. And I hopefully am aware enough to realize when there are those kind of differences. So I've tried to become better at articulating some of the whys. Like, why is it this way? And things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that must have been for you to realize was the pledging allegiance to the flag thing. That's something that I've never been able to really get over. I've also never really met anybody in Britain who I talked to about this who wasn't either like, I don't even want to be, again, I'm going to get a little bit crass here, but like either disgusted or like appalled or really confused at the best as to why this is a thing and why it's socially acceptable. Because we would see that as like sheer indoctrination in the UK, right?
So, in a way, it is. And that's how I've heard from multiple people that I know from outside the US when they hear the aspects of Pledge Allegiance where they think, wow, that's indoctrination. I've even been able to say comfortably, like, yeah, it is. And yet totally comfortable with it. Where I have met very few, if any, Americans who feel bad that the Pledge of Allegiance is a thing. Now, I can speak to certain aspects of being forced versus invited to participate in things like that. But I will admit, I felt because for me it was a grade school thing, right? When I was younger, elementary type thing. And then once we kind of hit middle school, high school, it stopped happening. But it was something that we remembered it. And it was kind of like for us as simple as learning like the national anthem and things like that. Things that are Americana. That I don't feel bad about it. There's nothing about me that thinks like, "Ooh, that's a bad thing. Why do we do it?" I was like, I actually liked doing it and think it was a neat thing, and a kind of a group thing.
I mean, I don't think it's a problem, but I think the main thing is that it needs to be a choice. Almost if it's not led by the teacher, like maybe if they voted to do it or something. I don't know.
See, and that's again something that is so not American that when you say that, I'm just like, shut up. It is kind of a thought where when I hear from those who come external looking at it, I understand in a way that it's like I get defensive a bit because it's like you just don't get it. You don't understand. And those are some things that are so traditional that it is hard to articulate. But I will say that I do feel a certain level of like, yeah, okay, Pledge Allegiance. So what? I can totally respect if someone doesn't want to say under God or something like that because of religious views and things like that. But and from a philosophical and, just an analytic perspective, I can absolutely understand the desirement or arguments against even doing it. But it goes into one of those things as well where I'm like, but did it hurt? I don't know. And that's one of those weird ones. Because for me, I was totally like, it's cool.
Well, what if you just don't have a nationalistic viewpoint and you're more of a globalist? Like, what if you just don't really care about countries and you think that humanity should get on in general and you feel like the idea of pledging allegiance to a single flag is almost traitorous to that viewpoint? Right.
One, I think that'd be pretty impressive for a young child to understand or think. But at the same time,
part of the problem, right?
At the same time, I would say, cool on you. But it's something that it happens so minimally it's probably the wrong thing for us to like go nuts on in this show to try to figure out. But I'll distill it back down to when I hear external views of like observation in the U.S., I understand that there are certain things like that a lot of countries don't seem to get. And it's weird because I think that's part of what other countries looking into the United States see as they like to label. Because I hear this from multiple perspectives of our patriotism. Because when I have heard from everybody from any other country, when the word patriotism is applied, it seems like it is applied as solely a United States condition. That other nations don't see it. Because for me, when I think of patriotism, to me that is just a loyalty to your home nation, to your country. And so for me, it doesn't feel like or seem like an American or United States concept. I see people across all nations displaying what I see as patriotism. But it's interesting because that word alone seems to be attached to America.
It is now. It is an American term now. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, actually. I think that in Scotland, you'll find a lot of people who are quite pro Scotland. Like, a lot of people have like Scottish flags tattooed on them,
Yeah.
and maybe a couple people fly the flag. But honestly, well, compared to here, it's nothing, right? Like, it's less than 0.1% of what's here for American flags. But still, you'll find people who are very pro Scotland. But the reason that they're pro Scotland isn't just a generic, I generally love my country. It's more of a, due to the current political climate, this is a specific political statement.
Well, and that's
right?
because you're also dealing with
you're
dealing with an identity attached to the UK. And so you've got that interesting kind of mixed thing of, are you a British citizen or a Scottish citizen type of argument, which I could see causing a level of like, I'm Scottish, right? Man, kind of feeling.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I've always been, again, I'm a bit of an oddity because of one, I don't live in Scotland, right? But also because I've always had kind of unusual views on this compared to most of my fellow countrymen. And it's that I'm of the opinion that if somebody says to me, are you Scottish or are you British? It depends who's asking. If it's passport control, I'll say British because I have a British passport, right? That's just factual to me. It's just a point of, there's no point of contention. It's just a, I literally have a British passport. That makes sense to say. When I'm talking to people here at the university, they say, where are you from? I say Scotland. I don't say Britain because I find that's unnecessarily vague. They'll know what Scotland is. If I say Britain, they might think I'm Irish or Welsh or English, and that can be confusing. So I'll say Scottish then. But the point is, none of the times I'm asked will I choose an answer based on a personal preference. I just choose it based on, I happen to have been born in this country, and that's the one that you know of. That's literally it. I don't feel much in the way of national pride. Like, the closest I've ever felt is just how much I like certain towns and cities. I mean, my previous town, Stirling, I love Stirling. It was my I would consider it to be the home, the heart, where my heart is, right?
Gotcha.
My heart is in Stirling. I love Stirling because I had so many good experiences there. I met my wife there. I got both my degrees there. I spent most of my adult life there, and I love Stirling. I had so many good experiences. But it's not because it's Scottish. If Stirling was here and I had the same experiences here, or if it was in Iran, or if it was in Australia or Antarctic, I would have the same, well, pardon me, a bit more cold. I'd have pretty much the same experience, right? I'd have the same love for it. I don't know. My point is, I'm coming from somebody who's not nationalistic whatsoever. So when I see the stuff that's going on in the US with all this nationalistic stuff, I literally don't understand. And so that's my viewpoint. I literally can't empathize with it because I don't get it. Partly because I'm unusual compared to a lot of my countrymen who do have Scots pride or British pride.
And I'll say that when I have traveled to other countries, what's interesting, because I've known about that perspective, I have seen the same things that people vocalize as how they label Americans as patriotic, displayed in the actions of every country I've gone to. And so when I went to Norway and I happened to go on their Independence Day, basically, May 17th, and saw Norway Day, not only was every flag, like were there Norwegian flags up and down the streets everywhere, cars painted with it, things like that, everybody came out in traditional hundreds of years old outfits and paraded and all the stuff where I'm like,
wow,
dang, that's even steps above what we do on the 4th of July. We like to get together, eat some barbecue, maybe see a parade and blow up some fireworks. But
where in Norway was that though?
This was in up in Ålesund, the really tiny port town about halfway up the coast I went to. That when I went to go visit Octail's wife when she was going to university there, and so over in Volda. And so it was like a small little town where everyone from the regions around came to congregate there. So it's just interesting to me as a perspective because as an American who's traveled, I've seen that same level of nationalism. When I've gone to Japan and seen how proud the Japanese are to be Japanese.
Okay,
and everything they do.
Japanese are probably second on that scale. Like they are, well, they like Japan, right?
But I'm saying, I've seen that there are places I've gone where I've seen it from others. So it's interesting, but I could go into it further and some analysis to it, but yeah. All right. I see other things in here you've experienced this week that you wanted to share about your American transition. And so
sure. So yeah, that was the basketball. That's what we're talking about there. Nothing else.
Yeah, first note.
So yeah. So food. I can't remember why I mentioned this. I don't think I did anything particularly
Did
crazy
you
this
have
week.
something deep fried? Did you have something on a stick? Or did you have something that was caked with sugar in a way you didn't think was appropriate?
I know why. Well, yeah, everything meets that description. Even my goddamn cereal meets that description. I was having Cheerios this week, so I was like, oh well, I'll
Sugar.
buy that because it's healthy. And yeah, I noticed after I bought it, it said sweetened. I didn't even know you could get Cheerios that were sweetened.
You can't
So
get
I'm
Cheerios that
unnecessarily
aren't.
having. It's just such a waste. Anyway, so I went to, like I said, I had a meal bought for me on Monday very kindly by my colleagues and friends, and basically what we have at the uni is there's this like a ticket coupon system where you can buy tickets for meals,
Yeah.
right? And if you buy them in advance, you can get a discount. If you buy
Yep.
like 10, you get like 10% off or something, right?
Yep.
And that's great. That's cool, whatever. So they took me to the biggest one on campus, which has, I think it's 9 restaurants in one area.
Yeah.
Each of them
So
with 3 or 4 dishes.
the food court type area. Yeah.
Yeah. But this was like when I think of a food court, I think of like
a mall and all those separate restaurant stuff, but this is more like their cafeteria / eating facility with a lot of individual stylized specific food options.
exactly. And the foods that were available, oh my God. It was a buffet style. You can help yourself as much as you want. I couldn't believe it. And then when I got told the price, I was like, oh my God, it was $8 for an all you can eat Mexican sushi, pizza, I don't know, chips as in crisps, as in, French fries as well, and salad bar, everything. Everything was there. You could have yourself as much as you want for $8. And I was like, that is absolutely insane because all you can eat just for sushi in the UK would be about 30 or 40 pound, which is about $70. This was about 10 times cheaper for more stuff. I couldn't believe it. And in fact, I was actually, this is probably one of unlike most capitalistic things I've seen where I'm kind of looking at it with disdain. I actually really like this because it's a university campus. It's right next to all the residences. It means that the students who want to have a good meal and they want to eat cheaply, they can do so. They can, for $70 a week, which is like what, 50 pounds, 60 pounds. They can have one big meal every day and just stuff themselves full and survive quite comfortably with a rather healthy diet if they so please. I think that's actually a great idea, and I'm actually very impressed by that. So that's actually a good thing I have to say about this sort of capitalistic thing.
One of the best and worst things we have is a gluttony of food. Because we have a lot here and it's cheap in the U.S. for lots of reasons. We don't always do it the best with everything about it, but yes, that is such a U.S. thing.
Indeed. So I also want to give a little bit of chat about what I did yesterday. So I went to oh God, I still can't remember how to say it. Meijers. I went to Meijers yesterday, and it's just Walmart, but not as trashy, from what I can tell.
It's a more regional brand of big box store, or all in one store, because we do not have Meijers out here in Colorado.
Okay. So I went there. The problem is it's about a 2-hour walk from my home, and it's a little bit closer than the Walmart actually. And that was a little far. And I was planning on walking it, but as I started walking, I saw one of those e-scooters out on the street. It's from this company called Lime. And for those who don't know of it, it's a company that started in California. And it's basically there's just a bunch of these electric scooters. So they're just like a normal standard kid scooter that's got a tiny little electric motor in it that can zoom you along of about 15 miles per hour or so, which is fine. And it lasts for about half an hour before it runs out of juice. And what you can do is you just scan the QR code with the app on your phone. It unlocks. You can start driving it. And then once you're done, you just scan it again. It will lock wherever you leave it, preferably on a bicycle rack, is what they said.
You mean not on the side of the road?
Well, a lot of people do. A lot of people do, but I think you can get charged extra for that. So I wouldn't do that. I also saw they have this neat feature that you can actually sign up to be a juicer, and what that means is that you basically get paid to walk around the town, find these scooters that are low on battery, and take them to a charging point. And you can unlock free rides and other stuff with it, and you actually get paid. I was kind of tempted to do it. I was like, I've got a lot of free time just now, but I'm also very much aware that I'm not supposed to be paid for anything other than my main contract while I'm here in the US.
Oh, interesting.
So I can invalidate my own visa by doing that. So I don't think
Good
it's really
thing we don't make any money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fine. That's Scottish Ken is making that money. I've looked into it's genuinely fine. There's no.
Oh,
problem
that's funny.
With it.
Okay.
Weirdly enough. So yeah, Scottish Ken can deal with that. So yeah, I took this scooter thing. Now, the scary thing is when I got the app, I downloaded it and it said, "1, you must wear a helmet." I was like, really? I googled it and saw Michigan law. I was like, no,
I've yet to see a person on any one of the rental scooters wearing a helmet. Anywhere.
I'm very like honestly, if I had a helmet, I would wear it. Right? I think it's dumb not to, especially with my big bald head. But the truth is, I didn't have a helmet, and also I was being incredibly safe. I don't even have health insurance right now, so I was being stupidly safe with it. Right? I wasn't doing anything crazy. But the thing that was really terrifying was it said this is a motorized vehicle, and that means you're not allowed to drive on the paths with it. That is illegal. You must drive on the road. You must drive on the road.
Huh.
And I'd already been driving, like I already had a rental last week. So I kind of get the rules of the road. Good enough, right? So I got on, hopped on, and I was driving along. It was a bit hard to get my balance set, so I played in a car park for a few minutes first before going onto the road. And yeah, it was fine. I'd say 80% of the journey I was on the road. I had no problem. People just moved out into the outside lane, went past me, and it was fine. The problem occurred when on the last sort of road towards this store, it was slightly uphill, like very slight incline. So my 50 miles per hour dropped down to a 7, right? It was like, it was really trying to get along this road. And I was aware that, I was there was a busier road than before. There was I'd say there was cars passing once every 2 seconds or so. Like it was pretty hectic traffic. And after about 2 minutes of me driving on this road at this low speed, people started honking me. And I was like, right, I may be in the right legally here. I know that legally I'm doing the right thing. It's only a 40 mile per hour zone with no minimum speed limit. So I'm allowed to be here, right? But realistically, I'm being a massive pain in the butt to these people behind me, and it's dangerous for my own safety. I'm going to drive on the path. So I drove on the path for the next 15 minutes until I got there. I didn't come across a single pedestrian. And that's a lie. I came across one pedestrian, and when I saw him in the distance, I slowed down and walked with it because I didn't want to be a pain. And the guy, oh my God, this guy looked at me like I was the devil. He thought I was just absolutely insane. I don't know why. I don't think I was in a good area. So walking around my e-scooter must have looked super nerdy and vulnerable.
Well, it would be, anyway, why do you have a scooter and you're walking it? Are you stealing it?
He saw me slow down when I saw him. So I don't know. So I had a quite good experience there, actually. I really liked the fact that I could just hop on. In total, it cost me $10 because it's 25 cents a minute. To use, plus I think $1 starting charge or something like that. So $10, that's I could have got an Uber for twice that price, and it wouldn't have been as fun. I actually quite enjoyed myself. It was just fun to scoot along with this little thing, and you're only doing 50 miles per hour, but because you're out in the open, you're not inside a car. It feels like you're going quite fast. And the pedestrians I did pass earlier in the journey, I zoomed past them. I went flying past them. I don't think they could have easily kept up with me if they tried to run. That's how fast this thing can go. So I recommend if you have an e-scooter area to check out. It's quite a good way of transporting yourself short distances. It saved me a 2 hour and a bit walk down to something like 20 minutes, which was great. I then did a massive shop in Meijers and Meijers, and then I got an Uber back, so it was fine. And I just dumped it at the bike stop, no problems at all. That is my Americanness weakness stuff.
Outstanding.
So that was only about an hour this time, so it was less than last time.
Hey,
sorry,
again, this is a wonderful part of the segment. I enjoy hearing all the little things you're learning. about my culture and my world that I've grown up in. So I appreciate that.
Well,
I think
that
a
must be
large
interesting.
number
Yeah.
of our viewers like that as well, because they're hearing the same kind of external kind of perspective, as well as for those who aren't in the United States and haven't come, to be able to hear your impressions as someone who's now coming in and having to not just visit, but integrate into our culture. And so, yeah, that's what I think people enjoyed it. So with that, though, we are going to take a break. And when we'll come back, I will kick things off with a little bit of my geek cred this week. But as we do, I'm going to play a song, like I do always, an OC remix song. This one's going to be from, what is it? Chumble Spuzz is the artist on this one. But a remix for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 and Enjoy. So we will play that during this break. With that, you're listening to Show X, and we'll be back right after this.
Send in your emails to showx@vtwproductions.com. Listening to ShowX on VtWProductions.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back. All right, I decided to make that a little bit of a shorter break. I just need to go refresh my drink, and we have lots to talk about, so we're going to keep on with the show. So apologies for those who are still running for their bios and such, but let's keep going. So I wanted to kick off a little bit of...
I'm a geek. Are you a geek? Geek Cred, level up!
So, what did I want to talk about this week? I'm just going to skip over my dysfunctional beyond that anymore and say my first bit is I've had some, I go in these waves for good, bad, and ugly for the different things I do as projects and stuff, and I always like to have projects going on that I'm successfully knocking off. So, one of my recent successes is that I in order to prep for the holiday event for work, I had signed up to make, what was it? I was making green bean casserole. That is the main thing I was working on. And so I made green bean casserole, and that was fine. Didn't need anything special for that. But the other thing I sorted that I wanted to make was because I talked with one of my friends at work, just like, hey, let's have this, is deviled eggs. Because we were like, oh, no one signed up for deviled eggs. Love deviled eggs. Let's get some deviled eggs. And so in doing so, I realized, but the easiest way to make the filling, I need to blend that up, not just mash it with a fork or something. And unfortunately, I had recently destroyed my blender. Not destroyed, but I was going to clean it after the last party I had or something where I was mixing drinks. And when I was going to clean it, I forgot that I had put the little cap that goes on the top of a blender cover, little plug, inside the blender as I had rinsed stuff. And then normally what I do is I put some soap in the blender put the whole thing up, soap and water, and then blend that for a bit to just kind of clean all the blades and stuff, and then pull that out again. So I was in the middle of doing stuff, didn't go check, and I just thought it was back together. And so when I went to go and start it up, I just heard and water started spraying out of the open hole in the top of the lid, and I was like, dang it! Because that's one of those things. In a blender, you pretty much need that plug on there, otherwise things are going to spill out the top.
Yeah.
So knowing that, I was like, well, I can either go buy a new blender prior to trying to make these deviled eggs for work, or hold off and not do it. But I was like, you know what else I could do? Because I looked at the remnants of this lid and was like, you know what I could do? I could probably really quick model and 3D print myself a replacement. So I did.
Nice.
And I essentially just went out and I took, I had my calipers, little digital calipers, and measured the pieces that remained to do some kind of like, I figure it's about this much, and put it all, went into Thingiverse, or not Thingiverse, sorry, in Tinkercad, and just really quickly built up my own model of it. And let's see, I think I can share it real quick to show the before and
really weird
after.
Feeling. It's just so neat that you can take like an image in your mind, something you want to do, put it into a computer, and then it appears next to you. That's just mad.
So it's
That's
funny
so
about it, and people can see I'm sharing on here the actual what I ended up creating for it. In fact, let me make that a little bigger. But essentially, they got to see that, I just went out of my way and said, you know what, I bet you I can do that. And made it and posted a picture of it on social media. And it's funny because I got a lot of comments back where people were more impressed with this than probably most of the things I've 3D printed or people have kind of tracked and paid attention to. Because I think for a lot of people, it was showing them, practical use for it. And it's fun because my buddy Aaron in there commented on, because he was like, robots win again, because he's got, after I introduced him, he's my friend who picked up 3 3D printers. And so it also is creating things constantly. But that was like this little quick success where it's like, instead of me replacing this entire thing or trying to find a very specific replacement part that would have cost, however many dollars to get and ship to me, in a day, I was able to model it, print it. The first example messed up because of filament I was using. I had to heat up differently. But then the second time I got it to work, and it cost me probably 50 cents worth of material. And probably 15, 20 minutes of design time, if that. Like maybe 15 minutes of design time, and I now have a replacement plug. So that was just a moment. And it was funny because I do think a lot of people were surprised by it and kind of impressed, like, wait, you did what? Because I also had several people comment to me after that, asking me questions about 3D printing. One friend saying, hey, I'm looking at getting my husband a 3D printer for the holidays. What would you recommend? To a couple other people just saying, I've got some ideas for projects for some people for the holidays and stuff. Could you help me? I was like, I'm always down to commission out time on my printers. So, yeah, hit me up. But that was something that was just kind of funny with that anyhow. And I currently have 2 projects going right now that I'm very much looking forward to them getting off. Or actually, one just finished that's a present. As I'm testing out new models, sometimes I see a model, I'm thinking, I know someone who would like this. And so I'll just print up and gift them it. And so I'm doing that to kind of play with some models as well. Anyhow, so did that. The other thing I did is I had to work Friday because I took off Wednesday from work because I got an invite/opportunity from a friend of mine that I used to work with his new company, where he said, hey, there's a convention going on downtown that I think you might be interested in. Would you like to go? And I was just kind of like, what is it? SC19. I was like, what is it? SC19 is a supercomputer convention all about high-performance computing, cloud computing, multiple parallel processing, things like that on the level of way over my head, as I will mention it. But I did go to the Supercomputing Conference. And I wanted to bring it up because it was like, and I had hoped it would be something like a CES, in that you go and see a bunch of things. And in a way it was. If I happened to be managing a data server, like a data farm or something like that. I don't. I do have a server rack in my basement. It ain't the same. And I say this because I went from like me being excited to that I've got a dual Xeon Supermicro server rack in my, server in my rack that manages my FreeNAS installation. Yay, right? I'm excited because it has 10 gig E ports in the server, and I might be able to now network 10 gig E throughout my house. Wouldn't that be slick? Instead of 1 gig to get to my files on my photos on the computer there, maybe I can go to 10 gig. It'll be even better, which it would. These guys had tech where there were so many different examples of server racks, server configurations, network connectivity between server or like between those kind of connections, where I saw from one company, it was what, Mellanox Technologies, that I went in there and they had, PCI Express boards that were pushing 200 gigabit per second for you to connect between multiple rack items. I was like, whoa.
That's mental.
Wait, whoa. Just stupid numbers, right? And the network connectors to allow you to do whole rack setups, which makes sense.
Yeah, but that's not crazy though. It makes perfect sense. If you have imagine Facebook or Google servers, right? Like just imagine how people clicking on a photo at the same time.
Oh no, and that's the thing. It was at a scale that I was not prepared for. I am not the target audience for this conference and for this convention. I mean, now I'm going to show, because I have a map up from their site. You go to, their site was, you can just look up SuperComputing 19 or SC19, take you to the site. But looking at this one, because it's down at Denver Convention Center, and in it, this is just a map of like all the companies that were there. And I'm walking in the front door, and the first thing you see is NVIDIA, right? They have this massive booth set up, and you're thinking, wait, NVIDIA gaming stuff. But no, GPU processing along the line of all their quadros and stuff like that. And so they're showing real-time rendering of, model effects and physics and things like that going on, to how they're using supercomputing to do real-time processing of, like, autonomous cars and things like that, and processing all the data of the world around them and things like that, and just showing all this type of big calculations of big numbers and what that means and how people use it. So like NASA was there, and they were showing off weather modeling and things like that. It was really interesting because seeing the companies like NVIDIA and AMD being there and showing off the hardware aspect, where NVIDIA was doing the big press for all their GPU stuff. AMD was showing off, their EPIC line of supercomputer CPUs and things like that. It was just really interesting to see all of these different companies and the kind of things they were providing. With that, I was going to, I don't have a lot to say about the convention itself, other than I wish somebody more knowledgeable than me had been there, someone who knows how to program for cloud application and for multiple clusters and things like that, so I could better appreciate what was being advertised to me, because I couldn't tell one amazing rack from another, other than someone saying, hey, this one can hold 12 double-sided or double-width GPUs in it, and we did a special power thing to be able to allow it to run this much power. I saw a lot of cooling solutions, and there was a really cool hybrid oil evaporative type cooling setup where they were showing that they were able to get rid of all of the heat sinks and fans because they're doing immersive oil cooling, and in doing so, they were able to stack boards so close to each other that they can dissipate mass amounts of wattage of energy. Again, this is like geek level stuff of what you do when you're doing server farms. And they were pushing where this one company with their hybrid immersion, they were showing they stacked it so close that they were able to go where the board originally could only handle 75 watts per video card they ran on it per GPU for these 12 GPUs, that they were able to up it with a custom power loop they made to 350 watt of power dissipation per card, because they were able to densely put them together and move so much cooling. And how, because of that, they're not doing cooling individual parts of the boards, they're cooling the entire board at the same time, because it's non-conductive oil that the parts are immersed in. Cool stuff like that. As well as seeing some things
like the hardware side of things. That's quite interesting, because that's so far away from what I know of.
Oh, again, it's stuff I'm aware of, but it's so much above me. There were things like some of the classic, I didn't even think about it, like Unix Linux companies like Red Hat was there, SUSE was there, and stuff, just showing like, look how well we work in massive parallelized processing and things like that. Look, have you talked to us about our software and such? It was great because IEEE was there, Molex was there, these companies that are standard owning companies that show us how to connect things and work with them. What other ones I was kind of fascinated by? seeing stuff like Cisco, right, and Oracle and all these ones. A big one was storage, right? How do you massively share storage and manage it? Again, only aware because I run FreeNAS now, but I saw so many desktops showing all these things about how people are doing it. One of the interesting things I saw, because it's again beyond me, but in the back of the room, they had this student cluster challenge. And I didn't get into the details of it. I wish I'd gone and just sat down and talked to them. These kids were like in depth, and I swear they were high school kids, like 4 at a table at a time on computers, processing and doing stuff. And in these little booths they had back there, they had big screens up behind them just showing like a throughput metric type of display of all of their cluster and what it was doing. And it was a challenge, so my assumption, based on what I kind of saw, was that all of them were being thrown storage and data processing challenges against their cluster setup, and they were having to optimize it on the fly to try to get the highest performance across the board. And so you had this table of kids back there the whole time, just tick, 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 and in the middle, like this one leaderboard thing that just showed how each group was doing. And there was one, I give credit, it was Taiwanese or something, this one group, that just had a pegged, like this constant, very static level of performance above everybody, where there was a couple that had like a spike above their line, but they were just like consistently like, we got this. And so I kind of wish I just sat down and talked to someone about that. But I did my best to actually sit down and explore and enjoy a lot of what was being stated to me. Again, way over my head. And some top-notch salespeople, because walking through, they give you a badge that has your name, first name like really big on it, and then your full name and the company you were with below it. And I have to admit, I did not go with my company. I got sponsored in by my friends. But so it surprised me how slick some of their presenters were. I felt like I was so far away from the booth still as I kind of approached meandering over. No one would have noticed me. But I'd even get close and they'd be like, hey, Wayne, how's it going today? So I see you're with da-da-da, and what are you guys looking for in your data storage needs? And just like very engaging, where I was kind of like, wait. Because I truly felt like I could not have had an intelligent conversation with most of the pitch people. Because I didn't know what to ask or what to state. Like, so I see that you're advertising this thing here running 7,000 cores and 120 terabytes of memory. That's a lot. I mean, I no reference for how to speak to him by it. But
I see these numbers are quite big.
Right? There's so much of that. But in doing so, there were a few other notable things. Like one was Carey was there, which is a company I've respected from way back in the day, is one of the first supercomputing companies I ever knew. They've been acquired by Hewlett-Packard, and in doing so, they now have the branding of Carey again. So I got to go see their wonderfully beautiful liquid-cooled setups and things like that. Yeah, exactly, Babs. It's something where I couldn't even imagine the price, right, behind any one of the things I was looking at, because there was just so much going on in a single server case. And some of the examples where they're showing, oh, look, we can handle 12 GPUs. They would have 12 Titan RTX cards in there.
Oh, my God.
So you know they're running 20 grand or more just in video cards. And these aren't even professional ones, right? They're not the Quadros and stuff that'll cost you $5 grand a piece and stuff. It's just showing like, oh, yeah, you can just grab these, throw them in there. It works great. It's just like, this is dumb. But, and with that, though, what's interesting is to entice a lot of the people to come in and listen to their shtick. What they did is there was a lot of swag to be acquired while there, just for even listening to some of the presentations, which I did because I wanted to learn. So even like the shirt I am wearing today was something I acquired free for being there. And this one specifically, because go figure, one of the big names there, but if you can see, AWS for Amazon Web Services was there, as they were showing off a bunch of people. And tech, because Amazon's cloud services are massive, for people that don't know. I think there's, like 3 major players? Is it Amazon? It's either Intel or IBM, I think, has a massive cloud service thing, and there's someone else. But there's at least 3
HP.
or 4. Is it HP as well?
HP Enterprise Services.
Pretty massive cloud service things out there. And so it's just interesting. Not only were the companies there, and some of the ones I got some random stuff just for listening, or they'd sit on a seat and just like sit down. Here's a lot of free swag. But name recognition of companies I appreciate for various reasons, but like I got this big, I would say, golf towel or such from Gigabyte. So Gigabyte gave like just, this was sitting on a seat. What else did I get? They did raffles for a bunch of places. Like Dell was giving off with their display a Bluetooth speaker every like 30 minutes or every hour when they did a presentation. I did not get that, but I did get a nifty little Dell branded bag that came with a USB LED light in it. Silliness, cool. But whatever. What was it else that I got? I think it was AMD itself that I got this tiny little nothing like mouse pad, but I get these because I keep them in my basement for Game Fest. So it's like, hey, like free mouse pad. Let me grab that. Oh, I do it all the time because people come constantly like, hey, do you have a mouse pad? So I have a stack of random free mouse pads that I've gotten over things from swag and stuff. But more notably, I did get, because I listened to one presentation from a company that was doing data storage, and there were a lot of them, trying to show their front end for a service that allows you to easily manage and deal with multiple instances of things. But they were giving out, and a lot of places were doing this like money type things, gift cards and stuff for listening. So I was like, let me get off my feet and give my attention to someone to try to learn something again. And so as they said, she sat there and this gal kept trying to bring other people in. No one else did. So it ended up, I sat there. And then eventually right before she started, this other gal came and sat down. So there were two of us. And so, because I was the first to sit, she gave me 2 raffle tickets. So look at the, odds, straight up number odds, but I ended up winning a $25 Target Visa gift card from them for listening to the president. This is something also, because these companies are working, as Babs said earlier, in the level of millions of dollars per deal. That's
pennies to them.
Yes, they're part of their advertising budget, right? Which would normally be spent probably 10 times what they spend on the show, taking a couple execs out to dinner and wowing them, to kind of draw people in to learn something. So it was like nothing big. But one of the places I did stop by that was kind of fun is they had this whole area, and it's a couple spread around, but in particular where I spent some time, a lot of colleges were there. And I imagine they were all representing their, high performance computing laboratory or wings of whatever they are at their universities, right? Where they're at, because having students showing the curriculum and things they provide, as well as because at the colleges you're getting people doing research projects and stuff like that, so you can actually utilize some of the processing and things to understand. But so I went up to this whole area that had a bunch of them in there. I was looking at it, just looked up, and one caught my eye. And perhaps because as I walked in, I saw, as you're saying, was it green and white? Is the colors you're supposed to bleed now? Because I walked in.
No, that's the bleed, because Sterling University, which is these colors, also green and white.
Oh, right? So you get a double?
Yeah. Their motto is bleed green. So I think they've got that's theirs. I think the thing here is just go green, go white.
Okay. So with that, there were a ton of universities, like University of Texas, Arlington, had their physics department was there. Dallas, Texas, Arizona Research Computing, a bunch of these ones, and sandwiched between there's a mass one for Virginia Tech, University of Tennessee, all these others. But I happened to see a logo I recognize, that of both Michigan State and the University of Michigan's universities. And so with that, as I talked to their high-performance computing lab lead, Professor so-and-so, Dr. so-and-so or whatever it was, that was there. I have his business card in the other room, actually. And I was mentioning, because I was like, hey, a friend of mine happened to just start at your school. And so I mentioned your name, and he was like, oh, gosh. And he was so confused because he swore he recognized your name. He was like, did I interview him? How do I know him? What is going on? And come to find out, because I finally showed a picture of yourself and Kitten Features, and he was like, no, I don't think I know him. And then he realized that, I think he was asking his wife or did a search on one of the things, but he himself knows a Ken Reed, but from like a friend of his wives from back in the day, and so it just was bugging the heck out of him. Yeah. But in talking to him and actually spent some time with him, kind of chilling and hanging out, they gave me a beanie of your school and logo, as well as that I haven't opened yet, some socks. Some nice green and white socks for me to sport.
You officially have more MSU swag than I do. Well done.
Another thing they were giving out that was just kind of like silly in its own way was because they were just kind of things you could pick up from the table, but they had this little with HPC Spartans will grow a better tomorrow logo thing, and it says Go Green, and it's a little matchbox looking thing of a little tree with little Spartan logos coming off it. But when you open it up, it's a little flower thing. And then I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. But when you read it, it's actually, this is seeds in paper that you can actually plant somewhere for flowers.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I think the UK has a big thing where a lot of cereal boxes, they can do that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So yeah, that was just an interesting thing. I was like, that's what it is. They're talking going green. So were you showing off your one like MSU swag that you have so far?
Yeah, I have a staff badge, but I realized I had to hide my staff ID because it's probably some vaguely confidential or something. So
trust me, before I took my screenshot of my desktop, I looked at it again and was like, I'm not showing any relevant information that someone could take and do bad with, right? No codes, nothing
right.
like
Keep
that.
an eye on that.
Yeah, I had to look through it like, wait a second. All right. So that was like one of the most...
I don't see anything else, Spartan.
But that was one of the most geek
that
things...
cup behind me, I think, is Spartan.
There you go. Geek things I've done in a while, and it was weird to be in a place where I'm aware enough of the tech to be able to speak to it, but it was over my head. Was there anything? Oh, the only other thing I think I was going to bring up is that I happened to talk where I sat down and talked with was the 3M booth. Because 3M, they make all kinds of different things. They were telling me that they were making an all-copper cable connection, 3-meter cable, where already they do the regular connections to the LSI port or whatever to do the 200 gig. They were showing a quad-channel copper cable that did 400 gigabit per second that they could transition, and that in the spring they said they're coming out with one that'll support 800. And again, just numbers that I'm like, I want to get to 10 in my house. Right? It's just,
I'd be happy with one, yeah.
It was cool.
0.5.
Right? So that was a fun thing, very geeky, very, like I said, over my head, and that's odd for me with tech. But it was kind of nice and humbling to see that. Other than that, what did I want to bring up? Still playing League ARAMs, as well as Teamfight Tactics, because damn it, you can win extra little points if you play it enough. I checked out, but I haven't done it enough to really speak about yet, but the beta release of Minecraft Earth has come out, which is the smartphone device, their version of Pokemon Go type thing. But I haven't played enough. I've just connected items, and I've looked at one thing in AR, like one thing you can sit down, but I haven't actually done anything with that, so I'm waiting to talk more about Minecraft Earth until I've had time to go do an adventure in it and some things like that, so I have a little more understanding. Beyond that, I've been watching a stream, although I need to go back and do more of it, of Death Stranding. As we've talked about that game a little bit with the hype and stuff, I've actually seen a lot of people more say they enjoy it than not. But as I watch gameplay, I'm still trying to decide how much gameplay it is, or is it worth it enough for me to just watch a playthrough and say, done, I now know the game, so why play it? Save myself $60. But it's interesting, at least to watch it. It is very pretty. Let's see.
It's very pretty, and I heard some interesting reviews. Girlfriend Reviews, one of my favorite YouTube channels, did something on Death Stranding. I watched a 15-minute video on it, and the way they do it is so yes, I think I mentioned before, is the girlfriend of the main guy who actually plays the games. She sits there and watches him, and she shares her review of watching him play, which is quite a unique way of doing it. But she basically said that at first it was an incredibly annoying game to play because there's just these weird mechanics where you're just playing this super clumsy postman, and it's a little clumsy running around sometimes. Whoa. But by the end of the game, like the way that the story works with the multiplayer, you'll just have, your mind will be blown with how artsy and fantastic it is.
And I've seen some pretty interesting things in that where you can like the experience, and other people have played multiplayer who put things down in the world. You can find those same things in the world and utilize them. So people building bridges in areas or putting ladders down over treacherous terrain to make it easier to go over. You can actually see that someone else did that, and you can use the items they put down. I don't know the full mechanics of it because I feel like your world would get cluttered very quick. So there must be some limitation or whatever to how they do it, but that was kind of neat to see. And so we'll see. But people have been very much enjoying it. I have to admit, I don't have a console to play it right now, and PC version's not going to come out till however long. But I'm kind of curious. So that was this. And to speak to what Babs is saying right now, I have continued to watch and seen episodes 3 of both The Mandalorian and his Dark Materials. And oh man, and it's going to be so hard to keep doing this. Both. That.
Oh wow.
I am loving these two series, and I'm not sure. Like in a way, I'll start with his Dark Materials. It is interesting. It is gritty. It takes place in the UK in a wonderful world between worlds, and
Oxford, right?
essentially Oxford, but from two perspectives, which is really cool. And it's been already in the 3 episodes I've seen enough intrigue as to what's going to happen and questions about what's going to happen in the future that I'm just like, dang, cannot wait. And I've had so much difficulty not trying to spoil anything with any of these shows because I do recommend people go experience them if they can. Although I'm not recommending, because there's another side note to that, because of course His Dark Materials in the US is on HBO and BBC has it in the UK and I'm sure other entities out there. But here, with I think across the board, Mandalorian is Disney Plus, and so you'd have to subscribe to these services and such to be able to see these shows. However, or be like me, have friends. And so, watch parties. You can do that again. Hey, kind of like what people did with Game of Thrones. Go to someone else's house if they pay for it. So The Mandalorian, it's interesting because just from the get-go, like the front scene of it, something that I was surprised I would experience so well, but seeing it in 4K, the little introduction, like LucasArts Star Wars thing they do, where it shows, and I don't know if you've seen this, Ken, it shows a little on black screen shiny mask of various known masks from the Star Wars world, all the way from like a stormtrooper's head to Vader to Kylo Ren to a bunch of different helmets essentially from the Star Wars world, and droids as well. But it does in a slick way where it's very metallic looking, and it's like a colored light is going across from one side to the other, so it's like not visible partially, fully visible, and gone. It just cycles through them real quick, but it's so pretty. So pretty. Anyhow, just good colors and shiny chrome on it all.
I've not seen it at all, man. I don't have Disney Plus, nor do I plan to.
Well, and that's totally fair. It's something that I'm sure people will see in some way or another at some point. It is really pretty. And this, it's weird to say, but I'm enjoying The Mandalorian from a Star Wars perspective, I think, better than I have any Star Wars movie that has come out since the originals.
Oh. I thought you were going to say any ever. I was like, wait a minute, that's something different entirely.
Oh no, it is good. I've heard people complain about some levels of acting, this and that, but for me, it's just been solid. And because it's episodic, right, they don't have to just shove the whole story into an hour and a half, 2 hour experience. They're able to let it build and extend out. And it just feels to me more honest and genuine than it has most any of the movies that we've been seeing recently. And I enjoyed Solo. I enjoyed Rogue One, and I enjoyed Episode 7 pretty significantly. But this series it keeps building, and they're doing something so smart in it that I'm loving. And it's funny because anyone on them has seen, even and actually Babs said it in the chat there, Baby Yoda, which is funny because it's not, but it is. But nah, but that it's like the most adorable thing ever. That came on the side of what is an honest, like, Star Wars show. And so I'm really appreciative. And it's crazy because now that I've gone up through episode 3, it has built every episode. First one, introductory. You get a little bit of this, that. Who are the characters? Where's the world? I got you. Second one, here's some plot. Here's how it's going to extend. How much of this is just more filler versus are we setting the stage for the long plot line of the series? Not sure yet. Kind of see where it's going or something about it. Cool. Third one, solidifying a lot of the, okay, this is where the plot's going to go, at least initially, and we'll see now next one how far that extends or what this means. But had one of both the last episode, second episode and third had some of the best action moments I've seen in a thing or something where I was just like, yes! In the second one, it was IG-11. When the droid comes out and he's involved with that droid, that whole scene is just epic. And then in this one, it's towards the end of this episode, they have an action sequence that makes me smile, and it speaks a little more when you have always heard these things about Mandalorians and the lore behind it. And that's what's great about the show as well, is it's getting into the lore and things like that.
The new lore.
The new lore, it is, because I had a lot of questions going into it from the get-go from what I recall of the extended universe that is now the Fables and does not exist. But man, I like where it's going. and I look forward to more. And I will give them credit in the sense that I enjoy but hate that they are releasing things once a week, an episode a week. Because I know me, if this had come out and like so many others, we'd have been done with it in a day. I'd have watched all the episodes in a day or two, and maybe this is better. Because it's given me time to digest it, think about it, get hype about it, and wait for the next one. Where otherwise I would have crushed it.
I'm experiencing that right now with Rick and Morty. I watched the new episode recently because it's free on their website. I don't have access to the rest, so I'm sort of just like waiting till I either pay for it or whatever. But I'm sitting here like, oh, that was really, really, really funny, and it was remind me of the old Rick and Morty, and getting a little bored here. Would really like to see that now. It's fun though, because now you appreciate it more when you get it, right?
You do in a way, because I'm watching a ton of filler things. I just watched like Hush, the new Batman animated movie that had come out. Really enjoyed it, and I've been jumping through a bunch of other series and stuff that I've been able to binge. Like I watched all 2 seasons of Jack Ryan in about a week or so. Loved it, but now I'm kind of over that next thing, right? Where this one, I'm now hooked, and I want it more, and damn it. And so I'm holding off. Thankfully, I have a means now to, see it, each week. But it's just something where I'm just kind of like, damn it. But it's good. I think it's a good way. And same thing with his Dark Materials, because this one, it's continuing to expand the lore and stuff, and it's got such good production value to it, and the story kicking out. I'm like, I'm hooked. I want to know more. So I'm enjoying that aspect of it. Because for me, it never happened with Game of Thrones. I didn't care. And for whatever reason, maybe because I read the books and just didn't feel the pull, I wasn't following along. Same thing with Walking Dead and stuff like that, that I wasn't following along with the, oh my God, that I heard everyone out in the world discussing these things. This one
Breaking
I am.
Bad, yeah.
Breaking Bad, any of this. This one, especially The Mandalorian, I am understanding the hype. Not as many people I know have watched or seen his Dark Materials, but The Mandalorian I've seen everywhere on my feeds. And admittedly, one of the things I am printing is along those lines. And I can't wait to see how it comes off, because I think people will be happy with it. And Babs is right. If Disney Plus gave us the binge, they would have had 0 subscribers left after the first week. And
very good point, actually.
It's the joke that people have made about Game of Thrones and stuff like that, where, the finale happened, and HBO subs just fell off by 90%, right? And so I can understand it is smart. They're doing a good thing with it. I've heard a lot of other people talking about all the things on Disney Plus they're enjoying. So if you are a big Disney fan, it's probably worth it for you. And I've heard there's good bundles between Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus that you can get that will give you a lot of content for a reasonable price. So there's that. All right. That's why I want to get on that. Get it out the door. If you aren't watching and have access, I suggest you do. The Mandalorian has been so good for me so far, and I am enjoying the heck out of it. And so that's my state on that. All right. I'm done with my section. Ken, what do you got that's a little more geek this week? I do want time, even if we go over a little bit, to talk a little bit of news, because I got like one thing at least I want to bring up.
What are you doing after the show? You happy to go over a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to. We can do bonus
Okay,
time.
I'm working after this, like unofficially. I'm not on hours or anything. I'm at work, so I plan to do some work today. So I will need to go at some point. But I'm happy to go over a bit so that we can let's just do our Geek Cred like we normally would, and then do some news like we normally would. And when that's done, we're done. Right?
On to you.
All right, so I played a game of League of Legends just before the show with Mr. Wayne.
Since you finally have access to a computer again.
Yeah, I feel a bit guilty because it's my work computer, right? And it does have a really nice, set of graphics card and processor together, and beautiful screen. But playing with this mouse was just impossible. I just couldn't. I think I played Caitlyn, and I went 7-2 or something, which is pretty.
Yeah, I thought you were doing well, but I was.
Yeah, I was playing extremely safely, and it was boring because I couldn't. I couldn't trust the precision of this whatsoever, or for it to always track in the direction I wanted it to go. So I was always hiding in a bush, and I was always just waiting for somebody to walk in a trap, then hitting them.
Yeah.
And then I was just always doing smart ults.
It just means on your way home, stop by big box store, whatever, and spend $10 on a reliable USB mouse.
Oh no, I've got my my Razer Death Adder, but it's at home. I didn't think
gotcha.
All right. So
okay.
yeah, I didn't realize it'd be so bad for gaming because this mouse is actually quite enjoyable to use as a workflow mouse. Like I
Yes,
like the
because
fact that
Apple is
scrolling
telling
so
you
easily.
that is what you do with our device, Ken. How dare you try to do something like play a game? We're Apple. We're refined. We're for artists and creatives.
I don't mind that because that means it discourages me from ever wanting to play games at work, which is not necessary anyway, because I felt super guilty. Last night I was lying in bed and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can play a game before the show with Wayne. So I remote desktoped into this computer and made it and installed Steam and installed Dying Light and everything so I download overnight. And I thought, I feel really bad about this. Like, should I be doing this? Like, it's the weekend. Who cares? Like, there's literally
Hey,
nobody here.
it's all about what you're
Um,
doing. Unless you specifically signed something that said no games on the computer, hey. And on that
Oh,
note,
I haven't said anything.
I do have to say, because Earthweaver brought it up, that we have learned in the past couple nights over the weekend, and I think last weekend as well, if you play ARAMs on League of Legends between the hours of something like, and I think he's saying like 2 and 4 a.m. Eastern time or such, it is one of the most ridiculous times to play that game. Because
Okay.
we decided it is the time everyone is drunk and home from the clubs or being out time frame to play the game. Because as soon as it gets past about 1 o'clock in the morning my time, it goes from traditional, you're playing ARAMs and everyone's kind of playing their part normal, to 1:01 in the morning here, it's ham mode. Everybody just attacks. And it becomes the most aggressive ARAM play I have ever experienced for like a 2-hour period. Everyone who jumps into the game is just like, Rah! We had so many battles going where we were just like, holy cow, I can't slow down. So much is happening. Wait, we're going in? I guess we're going in. Everybody's going in. Let's go. And it worked. Whoa, how'd that happen? I don't know. I don't even know who I was shooting, but now everyone's dead. Let's go. So many crazy games like that, woo! Yes, thank you, copy. ARAM's Leroy Jenkins edition. That is exactly what that time frame is on like a Friday and Saturday night. From like, I don't know what it is. We both were like, what is going on? Do you see this? Yeah, I see this. I mean, are we doing this? I guess so. It was so crazy. Sorry, had to throw that in. It reminded me as you were saying that of that. I was like, oh yeah. I streamed a little bit that last night at that time this morning, and we were trying to highlight it. It was like, people have to understand this is a whole different feel for the game. And sorry.
No, that's all right. So yeah, I played that today, and it was like I said, I felt a little guilty. I'm sure it worked fine normally, but I tried to do it as a one-off since I've not got my laptop back yet. So I installed games here. So I've left them installed for now. The one I'm going to keep installed, and this is where things are going to be kind of interesting in the next couple of weeks. We'll see. I just actually started today on this. This is something of a side project. So the way it works is that I'm in the animal science department working on genetics for using AI, right? And that's cool and all, and it's my main project. That's my 9 to 5. That's where I'm going to put most of my effort, right? But there's a couple side projects I'm working on as well with the computing science department here, which I'm not a member of, right? I'm officially animal science, but these sort of side projects they're important because they keep my skills up in computing science, and I am a computing scientist. And also, there's people in this university who are very big in their fields for what is traditionally my field for computing science. So I want to get to know them and make a professional relationship with them and help them out and just do whatever I can. And one of the things that one of these guys that I met, who's kind of an up and coming guy, he's a couple of years ahead of where I am. He does a lot of video games AI type stuff, which is a little bit of a niche field and pretty rare, to be honest. But he does a lot of the genetic algorithms behind Atari games. So making AI which can not only beat the game in terms of like speed or controller, but trying to make one that can play different types of games is actually incredibly difficult. But it's really easy to make an AI to do one thing, like play Mario. That's fine. You let it loose, it'll do its thing. The problem is if you then take that AI that's learned Mario and try to make it play Space Invaders, it'll have no idea what's going on. It'll have no understanding of what the goal is, and it'll just fail forevermore. And so getting a robust adaptive AI is really difficult. So that's kind of what he's looking at. Anyway, so I was talking to him about this last week when we were meeting, and I said, "Have you ever heard of this game called Factorio?" Now, admittedly, Factorio, unlike the Atari games, is a lot more complex. Not only in terms of the actual literal complexity of the game, in terms of the strategies and how it works and how it functions and the purpose of the game, the genre of the game. But I mean, like literally, the fact that it is a modern game. It's not actually officially released yet. It's still in beta for one. But also, it's 60 FPS, and inside that there are ticks in the game. So that's the clock speed effectively, and they're super fast. But in an Atari, there's only a certain number. I think it's like something like 24 probably frames per second, maybe less. So you don't need to. So his previous AI just watch the screen, right? They literally watch the pixels. They learn what the super pixels are, the things that are really important, and work basically. They're thinking upon that. Getting that to work in Factorio would be nearly impossible because you'd be telling it not only to run. You wouldn't be telling your computer to run the game, which is already taxing, as everybody knows. Running a game is taxing. But you'd be saying every single screen and tick, we need to then analyze, drop into an AI, which needs to run hundreds of thousands of iterations to think about it, and then produce something how many times a second? That's practically impossible. Like, it's just not doable. So my thought is not to literally tell it to play the game, because that doesn't seem particularly doable. Maybe it is. I can think of a couple of ways around that. But I'm thinking there's this great system that the developers have put in place, which I love because it's a small company and they're really good programmers. They use Lua code that you can use, LUA code, inside the game that you can use to have some development options within the game. So you can ask it to, I don't know, spawn certain things or change certain properties of items or delete certain things or global settings. All that kind of stuff can be edited there. So that's one way you can have a literal programmatical input into the game. The other is the blueprint system. So blueprints in Factorio are a way, it's basically a city building sim with lots of survival elements, resource management, all sort of mushed together into this very unique bundle. And what this blueprint system allows you to place down a blueprint of items that you've thought of before.
Yeah.
And you can either have your robots, which if you've gone to that sort of advanced stage will build that blueprint for you, or you just know where to place it as the player yourself with that sort of being
becomes a
shown on the
template
screen.
for where you want to put everything. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And the good thing about a blueprint is it has a fairly small maximum size. So if you can create some kind of AI that understands the various elements in the game, for example, the fluid control, the electricity, maybe some understanding of defense, whatever else, right? You can give it these what we call as multi-objective problem, right?
Yeah.
So these different various objectives, rather than just saying get to the end of the game and maximize speed, right? It'd be minimize cost. Maximize efficiency, maximize output of this resource, minimize electrical usage, or maybe even something crazy like maximize groupings so that there's a pathing system for the player to walk around.
Okay.
Right? Things like that are fairly complex in themselves, but because it's kind of a confined single big square, if we can teach an AI all those various different elements, and that's a big task in itself, there might be a way to make it produce elements of the game programmatically for us and produce efficient mechanisms within the game. If we can do that for one square, why can't we do it for multiple? So instead of it being, here's the game, play the game, we could say, here's a square, just do that square, then the next, then the next, then the next. And we could also introduce things eventually, like the technology levels. In Factorio, you start off with the ability to do the most basic things like mining and smelting, and that's pretty much it. And then producing the most basic things like iron rods. What would be neat is if you could also teach this AI to prioritize research and science and unlocking certain things that it thinks are more useful compared to others, and effectively getting it to play the game, right? And you think to yourself, this is research. This guy's working at a university. Why on earth are they talking about playing games? So well wasted of resources. So my field of expertise is originally a subfield called operational research, which is, basically management science using AI.
Yep.
And that's exactly what this is about. This is just managing an environment with various aspects that are fairly complex, making them all work together in a better than a human can do.
Yeah.
So that, and if you can do it in a game like Factorio, you can learn from that, literally human level learning, not AI. You can learn from that and develop systems that are similar in the real world.
You can start applying it to different problems. Yeah, you can start applying the solution concepts to problem sets throughout the world. As long as you understand what problem you're trying to attack and from what angle, you can allow the AI to inform what you would do, and if you learn it well enough, provide it an ability to actually simulate what it is you're trying to solve, and then take from it those answers and apply them appropriately. It makes sense.
Absolutely. And it also has an element of fun because, and it's actually good for science as well, because one of the things, there's two main, at least in computing science, there's two main sort of objectives that you do research for, and you test your research upon. One is benchmarks, which is the idea of, we have this data set, maybe it's like, I don't know, satellite images. Can you prove that your AI can detect certain things in it, like either more quickly or more efficiently, or get a better accuracy score or whatever than other AI? It becomes a competition, right? You just see whose AI is the best. And the whole point of the research is to try and beat everybody else's so you can produce something better for the world. Alternatively is the real world applications. So that's kind of what I did in my PhD is mine was literally saying, what can I do? What can I produce that is going to actually make an impact on the real world? And that's proof by itself. You don't need to have a competition. You can say, no, look, I literally solved this problem in the real world. That's proof of the pie.
But it's also something you can use to inform.
First one, right?
Yeah, because you can take the results to compel people to invest in a new solution. If you can show a simulation that says, here's why I believe this has application to the real world, now give me a grant or let me help lobby legislation to now move towards that or something like that, it makes sense. It's like any simulation software that's just, it's funny because even in my work or anything I do, I reference games all the time for practical purposes. One of my favorite aspects to throw at people is to advantage of what game companies solve every day that other companies maybe don't appreciate is, one of my favorite terms to say is actionable information, is how do they provide information to a user in such a way that that user can react or somehow choose to act appropriately to that information. And in gaming UI, you do that all the time where you're having a constantly changing environment that you have to be able to provide information to a user visually, through the audio, through displays and stuff of what is changing, therefore I can choose to react to it in the most efficient way. I often actually reference League of Legends because they did so many things compared to the old Dota engine that were specifically in the advantage of a user's interface and how it made it easier as a new user to understand which characters were which, the silhouettes of characters, the color schemes, the abilities and things like that, to how am I interacting with the world? How do I know when I've been damaged versus providing damage and things like that? All of those are cues that they subtly add in there to make it so that I can now react appropriately as quickly as possible. You apply that same logic to almost any UI element, and it just makes sense. I reference all the time. I need a display that allows me to zoom in and out of information in a meaningful way, and so I always reference, look at video games like RTSs, how they do it.
Yeah.
I need to know what kind of control scheme.
I think the best design you don't notice, right?
Yeah, and it's something you either already know because you take for granted we've already learned it. It's in our regular life. We reference smartphones and stuff like that all the time because people are so comfortable with them now.
Intuitive.
You can start there that you have very little learning you have to provide people. Things like it absolutely applies. Games are underutilized in the professional space, I feel.
Absolutely. And I think it actually originally comes from the real world, right? I mean, if you look at doors, like simple things like a door, right? If you walk towards a door that has a handle on it, you assume that you need to push down the handle and pull because that's what you usually do. The problem is, like the door in my office, for example, it's actually very poorly designed because it's got a handle on both sides and it's got no word saying push or pull. So people will come in and do the wrong one frequently, right? That happens all the time, 50% of the time. You can argue culturally the door should always swing in, so it does. So maybe more people will do it psychologically, but most people, all they know is they need to pull down the handle, then it's either a push or a pull. That's all they really know. And what really irritates me is when you have something that has both, like a handle, like those doors that don't have locks and they just have a handle that you pull, like a sort of like company door.
Yep. Right.
You open it has a handle on both sides, but one says pull and one says push. People aren't looking for that sign. They naturally, without thinking, just think, I'm approaching a door that has a handle. I will have to pull this.
Yes.
So even if it says push, they're going to end up pulling it first. Either walking in the door or it'll jangle or whatever.
Versus if you have
and people will think they're Yeah, and
Sure.
anybody who actually stops to think about the situation will be like, "Oh, look at that idiot!" Like they could have just read the thing there. But
And
you're
like
not
you said,
supposed to be able to have to read it.
it's poor design.
It should come naturally.
Yeah, it's poor design because normally you'd have a crash bar or a flat space on the opposite end that you push against. The regular metal attachment. You're like, oh, this is a push. A bar or
Yep.
handle, that is a pull. Absolutely, totally makes sense. And so
I saw a study that was I don't know if it was an official study. I think it might be just a sort of like an idea, but somebody came up with this concept about steps, the stairs. So like outside steps mainly, like sort of the rocky ones going up to
yeah,
a building or something. Um, Most of them are set to a very specific height, right? I don't know what it is, something like 7.5 inches or something. And that's the standard, right? Almost every step in the world, about 90% of them, are of that height because that's the one that we're all used to. But a lot of companies just don't even think about that. When they design steps, they're just like, oh, whatever, like 8 inches, 7.3, whatever. They don't think about it. They just do whatever they feel like. Or worse, if you get a sort of like a cheap contractor come in to do them, he'll just build them without measuring, right? Which is even worse. Even if they look okay, they might just be a couple millimeters off each one. And I saw this concept study that basically said that they estimate that there's probably a couple thousand people a year who die because they misinterpret the size of the steps and they slip. And a slip and fall on stony steps is inconvenient for most people. But if you're elderly, if you have osteoporosis or some other disease that makes you particularly weak to falls, broken hips and the likes, you can die. You can literally die from somebody just getting the wrong number of millimeters in a stone step. And it's little things like that I really wish organizations would think about when they're building and designing places, because smart design isn't, complex. It should be so simple that we don't even have to consider what we're doing. We shouldn't have to look for the steps. We should assume that they're the same size as everywhere else, the ones that we're used to. We should assume the door that has a pool bar should be a pool, and so on.
nah, Ken, you see, you're taking away Darwinism. We need the ability to cull the herd by people who can't adapt to
That's
challenging
not Darwinism.
situations.
That's not, everybody falls once in a while. You should be one of the unlucky ones who has, a poor hip or something at a time. That's enough to kill you. Anyway, so yeah, I played a League of Legends match.
We're so good at this.
Yeah, no, I was going to tell you the Factorio thing. That's fine. So that'll be fun. I really hope that goes through because Factorio is an awesome game. It's amazing, and I think it deserves to get the limelight and some kind of research in this. It'd be nice to also do some research into something that I chose the direction for in the first place. Most of the research I've done in my life so far has been somebody else has chosen it, and I got on the project, which is great, and I've enjoyed that. It's been a good experience, etc., etc. But it'd be nice to have some direction that I've chosen in the first place.
Nice.
I watched a little bit of Firefly this week. I only watched the first episode, but it's so good.
Yes,
I kept
it is.
stopping every 15 minutes or so just to pause it and think, man, this is good. This is just so enjoyable. Like the way it's acted, little things, even the phrasing. Like the first episode is a little, it's the first episode, right?
It's a
They're getting
pilot,
ground,
yeah.
so it's not. Yeah, it's a pilot, but it still feels great. Like there's a couple of issues with it, but man, it's just even the dialogue's fantastic. The one bit I really loved, I didn't notice any of the previous 3-4 times I've seen Firefly, was Shepherd Book is with the companion. What's her name?
Inara.
Companion. Inara. Yep. At the very end of the episode, Shepard is extremely upset. He's weeping and he's really sad because
I might have got on the wrong ship.
Yeah, exactly. Well, of course, you've memorized his lines. He's sad because he had to fight somebody, and he may have caused somebody's death or failed to save someone. And so he says, "Yeah, I might have gone on the wrong ship." But at the end, when he's sitting there, he sort of collapses and he's weeping on this I don't know, furnishing like a pillow or something, and he's just sitting there. And Inara leans over and touches his shoulder, but the camera zooms out and shows a preacher kneeling for forgiveness and solace from a prostitute. And it was just like, this is so beautifully set. It was just so multi-layered. I loved it. I was just like, how did this show not take off in a bigger way? Like, it was just so perfectly set. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, so Firefly's awesome.
We can talk forever about how Fox actively killed a wonderful show.
Oh yes, one of the a work of art. They destroyed a work of art. Um, I finished reading The Boy on the Bridge last night. I started this last week. This is my 25th book of the year, which I'm happy to say. I beat my challenge of 24 last month. This is a continuation of The Girl with All the Gifts. These are books by Mike Carey. I got that on Audible. He is an author who received much acclaim in 2014 for the Girl with All the Gifts. I think it's 2014, which is basically it's a zombie book, but a very unique look at it. The concept of zombies and how it works. It's all based in Britain. I really enjoyed all the references to British stuff. It's all pretty accurate. The characters are all very British in different ways. His first book was critically acclaimed, got some really high tier awards, and was extremely popular for a while. So he recently released his second one, The Boy on the Bridge, and I just finished reading it, and I gave it 3 stars out of 5 because it was still good. It was enjoyable. It just felt like I don't know, unnecessary. It was a good story and everything, but it just wasn't great. It was really just like, I'm glad I read it, but only just like it's the equivalent of 6 out of 10, 60%.
Gotcha.
Right? Like it goes towards the positive side, but it pales in comparison to the first one because that did so well. That being said, there was a lot of elements that were written very well, some conversational pieces that made me stop and go, wow, that was poignant, or that was a very beautiful metaphor, and so on. But still, the overall story felt a little dragged out, unnecessarily so.
Gotcha.
The basis of this story is there's a number of soldiers and researchers in this tank, effectively, that's been refitted to also be a research lab, and it's called the Rosalind Franklin, and they call it Rosie. It's just sort of driving around the UK, picking up different stuff to test, all right, for the researchers to look at for the zombie virus, the fungal zombie virus. You're basically stuck inside this tank the whole story, more or less. There are a couple major scenes that are outside it, but I'd say 90% of the story is within this tank, and that's fine. Like, there's a lot of stories out there. What's that extremely violent film? Oh shoot, what's it called? It's a very cowboy film. It's in a sort of winter wonderland almost place. It's very snowy. It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it. Hateful Eight.
Yes.
Hateful Eight. So the Hateful Eight is other than the intro 10 minutes, the rest of the scene is in one room, right? The entire film, and it's one of the best films of all time. It's fantastic because there's so much intrigue into the characters. The acting is so perfect that you just don't want to like even glance away for a second. And in fact, if you rewatch it, you'll notice more stuff than you noticed the first time. It's worth rewatching. Hateful Eight, fantastic film. Really do recommend it. It's by Quentin Tarantino.
It's a Quentin movie.
It's a Tarantino film. It's really fantastic. Anyway, this kind of reminded me of that in the sense that it's almost entirely in one place, but it wasn't nearly as done as well. I felt like I felt a little claustrophobic listening to it actually, rather than feeling like I was interested in the character stories. I felt that they were very cramped, and I was cramped listening to it.
Gotcha.
Like I say, good story, but not great. Anyway, I finished that, which was good, and I've now moved on to Dracula. The original Dracula.
Bram Stoker?
What?
Bram Stoker?
Yes, that's right. Bram Stoker, yep. The late 1800s novelist. It's a gothic horror by the Irish author Bram Stoker. I'm only like a minute or like 5 minutes into this story so far. I'm quite enjoying it from what I've heard, but of course it's the classic where Dracula came from, right? So it is a classic, and this is one of those things that I wanted to read one day, and so what I try to do is every other credit I'll buy myself something that I should read, and this is one of my should reads. Thankfully, so far I am enjoying it. We'll see how that goes the rest of it. The last thing I want to mention, and this is something I could probably do several shows on, so I won't talk too much about it. This year I've been reading a lot of material in both, I don't want to call them textbooks because they're not textbooks, philosophy novellas almost.
Okay.
Philosophy fiction books, which are on Stoicism. So Stoicism is a branch of philosophy. You may have heard somebody being referred to descriptively as being a Stoic. Or funnily enough, with MSU, you could argue being Spartan is also being Stoic. Stoicism is basically this understanding of, it's not a particularly joyful philosophy. It's kind of the opposite. It focuses very much on the bad parts of life. But the concept is that you are only ever in control of yourself and your own actions and your own emotions. You are entirely in charge of your own mind. It is yours. You can do with it as you please, but that is as far as you can go. So, if you witness somebody getting I don't know, brutally murdered in front of you, if you tried everything you could do to stop it, and you met your own moral justification for everything you did to try and stop it, you shouldn't feel bad. You shouldn't feel guilty because you did everything in your power. Equally, if something bad happens to you, if you get robbed or something, and you had a lock on your door, you locked your door, you had a security system, but you got robbed anyway, you did everything in your power. You shouldn't feel bad. If anything, you should feel joy, the fact that you did everything you could, and move on. It's very much this idea of so long as you've done what you can in your power, that's all you can ever ask of yourself. And it's a very powerful branch of philosophy. It has some some really important figureheads in the field include Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius. I can't remember the guy who actually started it. It starts with a Z, I think. He has quite almost an anime name, actually, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But Stoicism is a very ancient Greek field of philosophy, and I've been reading these different texts because I find it very comforting. I find that whenever there's any kind of tragedy or even minor inconvenience in life, I've been trying to teach my brain to be stoic about these things, and I think this is a good approach for life for people like me who are a bit of a robot, because I already kind of approach things kind of stoically and naturally. But I also think it's very good for people who have an emotional response, because it's a good way of teaching yourself not to. Stoicism isn't punishing yourself for having emotions, but it's punishing yourself if you hold on to them as important, right? It's sort of saying that that's not healthy. The important thing is having an instant response to something. Fine, like if somebody punches you and you're instantly angry, you shouldn't. You're not. It's not that you're not being stoic. You're allowed to be angry when somebody punches you, for God's sakes, of course. But how you then react in the seconds after that, once the initial emotions sort of rushed over, do you grab control of your mind?
Yeah. What do you do with
body?
it? Or do you let it? Or do you let the emotion own you?
Exactly. And I've been really enjoying reading this, and the reason I brought it up is because I've joined some subreddits and stuff to read about other people who are sort of on this who are interested in reading up on Stoicism and becoming Stoics themselves. And it's really interesting to see, because I see people who are talking with some. In fact, the reason I brought up the robbing idea was a guy on Reddit posted on the Stoicism subreddit saying, "My home was burglarized." He went home and found his Nintendo Switch, his PS4, his TV, his laptop, his speaker, his shoes and clothes were all missing. The place was trashed. And he had a bit of a wow factor when he went in, but he wasn't mad or angry. Instead, he said that because Epictetus taught him to not connect himself with materialistic things, that way that when they're gone, you won't feel feel anything. He said this is the first time his stoicism has really been tested. And he says it was out of his control. He couldn't have made the burglar not be there. So in the end, he's sad that he is somewhat sad that things have gone missing, but he's actually kind of happy with himself because he managed to deal with it in such a mature manner, and he's just going to move on with his life. He's not going to let somebody else affect his mind. He's the one that's in control of his mind, and that's the way it's going to be.
Gotcha.
And I think that's a very powerful way of doing it. And I think that a lot of people lean on like religion for this kind of mindset. You know, they'll lean on God, lean on Jesus, lean on Muhammad, whatever, to get that kind of support in their life. And I think the basis of I think it's actually really speaking to me, because I feel like with atheism you don't have these figureheads to look upon, these role models to look at, to learn from. And I've realized that that's not the case. Philosophy offers those kind of figureheads. You can look at real human beings who like Marcus Aurelius was an emperor of Rome, you know, and he wrote some of the most amazing Stoic texts. And you can see from his experiences of leading armies and killing people and going through great personal loss, that he managed to stay a Stoic through the whole thing and being very wise and mature. And I really respect that. And so I've been trying to be more Stoic in my own life. And I just kind of wanted to mention that it's an interest of mine. And I'd be interested to hear if anybody else ever feels that they can lean on a branch of philosophy like Epicureanism or something, which is more of the approach of, if it's raining, you jump in the puddles and be happy, which is really not. Whereas Stoicism is more like if it's raining, you look up at the sky and say, well, I couldn't change that if I wanted to, and continue on. Right? They can both tackle the same issues, but in different ways. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up and thought it'd be interesting to talk their world.
I'll say with that, I would say if people want to provide their insight and how they feel about it, feel free to email us, showx@vtwproduction.com, or even jump into our Reddit and kind of discuss it there. I could think we could have multiple shows just on that kind of subject matter. Because my immediate response, without continuing to just take up the time with it, is to say that I believe that's kind of just my default kind of stoicism, being stoic about things, because it's kind of that level like, it took some time getting there, but it's like, yep, that happened. Okay. And move on. Not perfect, but general. But my other side to when you kind of ask the question if there anything you follow, I don't believe I follow any organized, defined anything. That I hear ideas from different aspects and think, oh, that's kind of interesting, and explore it a little bit. Some of it sticks, some doesn't. But I don't lean on any specific... I think organization of most things to me is just categorizing things in a way that limits it, and so I don't like it.
It's fallacious, right? If you say you're like, this is my biggest problem with religion, right? Is that if you say you're Christian, I'm like, okay, so you follow every single thing in the Bible, even those who are literal biblical followers. I'm like, you're also ridiculous, because it is everybody can see that Westboro Baptist Church does not fit in with society today. I don't think even they can say that it fits in society.
Well,
nobody can argue that.
No, but they would argue that they're the only ones who are interpreting it correctly.
Of course.
And my thought being along those lines is just, when I try to identify towards a group, I tend to say, well, I mostly find myself leaning this direction, or I most closely identify here, but I also understand that I'm not. I'm most often a libertarian, but I'm not. Right now, I feel like in reaction to some things, I'm more this, but that's not me, because it depends on the issue. Anyhow, so yes.
That's healthy, though. That means that you form your own opinion. Right?
But that's also where...
just following somebody else's.
I think, and that's why I'll be curious to see what people say and kind of comment back to us about what things they think along those lines. All right, so I do have one news story I wanted to bring up today.
Sure.
And we'll see if this continues long or short or otherwise, but it kind of leans to a couple things. And that is from the technology perspective, and for anybody who is into automotive in any way, just this last week, Mr. Musk went out and announced a new product from the company Tesla. And in doing so, he announced the brand new Cybertruck, which I don't know if any of you have followed and seen this, but it is definitely lit up my online spaces for people reacting essentially to Tesla's latest announcement. This was something we knew was coming for some period of time, and a lot of people were very interested to see what we would get. And there was a lot of conceptual art and things like that as to what it might look like. And we got to see it. Uh-huh. And here it is. So, what are people's thoughts? Okay. I threw this out just in the get-go because a lot of people, the initial launch video, if you've watched Elon Musk, I will right out the bat say, it was kind of a mess. The actual announcement and the live video and him doing stuff, kind of a mess. Which led to a lot of people looking at this vehicle and saying something similar. It's kind of a mess. And oh my boy, has the internet blown up with memes and stuff from it. Multiple reasons. But essentially, the new Cybertruck from Tesla is going to be an all-electric pickup truck that is supposed to, in many ways... Oh, that's weird. There we go. That it is supposed to match or beat all the basic specifications of the primary pickup trucks that you'll see around the U.S., like the Ford F-150, and being all electric. And in it, there's some discussion as to whether or not it meets those ends, and again, what people think about it. But the article that I was going to speak to from it, let's see, this one I think is ABC News here, is that their overall discussion thing was stainless steel, broken glass, and buzz. Tesla makes a pickup. And so when it came out, he talked about, it's weird the stuff he focused on to me, that he kind of showed some of the numbers, which makes sense, towing capacity, range, power, stuff like that, which makes sense. The numbers do make sense. But I just did not feel the sales pitch in this one. Now, granted, it doesn't come out until 2021, I believe is when it first comes out, although you can pre-order it now. But there was a lot of hype coming up that he said, and through all his Twitter noise of what he would put out there, what he thought a pickup truck should be able to manage, all the capability of best-selling pickup trucks in the U.S., Ford F-150, but at a decent price, all electric, that kind of thing, and to surpass. So he was saying even in the get-go, you should be able to get an all-electric truck for less than $50,000. Well, I'll give credit. He hit basically all the stuff he had said he would. And so it's going to come in 3 versions. It's going to have a regular motor, a single motor rear-wheel drive version, a dual motor all-wheel drive version, and a tri-motor all-wheel drive version, all giving it more power and such. The base model one starts at $39,900, so just under $40,000, even better than what Elon originally said would happen. That one gives you a range of about 250 miles. I think they actually were saying closer to 300, but about 250 miles. And I think they said the 0 to 60 on the rear-wheel drive is somewhere in the range of like 6.5 seconds or something like that, which is a decent car. Oh. And now this is, admittedly, and we don't know the numbers on this, is going to be a very heavy vehicle. Part of the big change and why that look of it is there is that he said they got rid of the traditional sled architecture of the truck where the whole frame is underneath and you basically just put a cab on top of it and a pickup bed on top of the back of the sled. And instead they built an exoskeleton that the whole frame and look is what is the structure of the truck. Makes a lot of sense. I'd say that's why arguably it looks like a triangle from the side. Because if you think of bridge building and stuff like that, it's one of the most structurally sound and load supporting type structures. At the mid-level, it's supposed to be that 49.9 level or such like that, and it basically adds the all-wheel drive. It's still the same battery, so the same range, but it reduces the 0 to 60 down to 4.5 seconds, I believe. Much quicker. Uh-huh. And from a big pickup truck, that's really fast. And then at the high level, the all-wheel drive motor one, where they're going to have 2 individual motors on the rear wheels and 1 on the front axle, at 70,000 essentially, it gives you a bigger motor. A bigger battery, which gives you a 500-mile range, which is legit for an electric car. Gives you a maximum towing capacity of 14,000 pounds, which I think exceeds all in the class, as well as it drops at 0 to 60 to 2.9 seconds, which is ridiculous for a pickup truck in general. It has a 6.5-foot bed, so it should be able to hold as much as any normal short box full-size pickup truck. And it has some interesting little features that you'll see on it, even though arguably the look is such, of a built-in tonneau cover that covers the bed and rolls all the way down into it. LED light bars across the front and back for the view of it. They show it'll hold 6 people in it, where 3 in the back and a basically jump seat in the front between the middle seats and things like that. So it's all very interesting, the numbers and stuff, I get it. And it makes sense for the market it's trying to get into. At the same time, the thing is, in my opinion, ugly as sin. Just
I think the prevailing opinion of the internet is that it looks like that one car we all tried to draw when we were 4 years old.
I've seen a lot of perspectives saying this is Elon's, vision when he was a child, brought to life. Uh-huh. As well as one of the better memes I've seen is it looks like a cross between a DeLorean and a Pontiac Aztek, where the Aztek is notably the ugliest car of all time, and a DeLorean got together and had a baby, and this is it. But with that in mind, I think it's interesting. We'll have about 2 years to really enjoy or kind of come to grips or understand it. But I was kind of curious on, in general, what other people's opinions of it are. Is this cool? Is this the future? Do we want to be driving around, as Hando said, basically a Mars rover on the streets and things like that? I'm curious. It's still somewhat prototype. It didn't have side view mirrors, which are still a requirement in the United States. It didn't have a traditional rear view mirror. It had a screen instead, which makes sense in a lot of ways. I'll be curious. It's something that I like the idea of. Part of my challenge is, even though you can pre-order one for $100 right now, and they talked about, Elon tweeted out, reaching over 146,000 pre-orders, of which the majority were either the dual drive or the triple drive versions. Man, my problem is I would need at least the all-wheel drive where I live, and I would want the bigger mileage, and so 70 grand is out of my price range. But I'd be curious. There were some snafus with the display, right? Because they showed while they took a sledgehammer to the frame and just beat on the metal and it didn't dent. Pretty cool. They said they had also made this armored glass, and notably they threw a big ball bearing at it and it cracked, or it shattered. So not so proof. And then they did come out and show some demos previously in the back where they had done it and it had worked. So questions on that. For me, from the general durability they'd shown of the skin and potentially the glass, I think it's an amazing Colorado car because we get a lot of hail, and I have damage on my car from it because, aluminum and fiberglass and things like that. If I had some stainless steel beast that could handle it, I would have no qualms leaving a vehicle like that parked out front or at the airport or something like that.
I saw a YouTube video somewhere in the US this week, actually. This guy was just going, come on. And then it was just this perfect windscreen smash. He was like, come on, smash, smash, smash. It's just getting pulverized by hail.
Oh, anyone who's
this big, right?
Yeah, anyone who's ran into a Midwest hailstorm, you're just like, you cringe when you hear it hitting even the siding on your house, let alone your car. If it's parked outside, you're just like, oh, God. So in those senses, now I do have a serious question about it that they haven't talked to, and I'm really curious to see. Crash test. I really want to see if they made such a sturdy exoskeleton. I did not see in it crumple zones or things that you normally do to limit force and impacts to a compartment interior for the people and such. Now, it doesn't have a traditional challenge you have in combustion cars where you have to make the engine drop so that a person doesn't get the engine driven into them in a head-on collision. But if that skeleton is that sturdy, are we going to go back to the days of like 70s mass steel cars that it will tear through other vehicles and therefore more likely kill other people? I don't know. I didn't see anything on that, but if they're taking sledgehammers to the structure and it's built in such an angularly sturdy way, I want to see what happens when you run it into a traditional F-150. Head on side and just see what happens.
It's the case that you need to buy one of these or you'll get
to survive, right? I mean, that was a legit question.
Bumper cars.
Now, I will say I'm excited for the announcement because I think it's about time we continue to bring electric vehicles into the mainstream. Being an old-fashioned car nut, I love combustion engines. I love the idea of a big V10 doing massive things. I equally, watching videos on electric cars, turn over and watch a vehicle where they built a 10.7-liter Trans Am drag car or something with a huge blower on it. Was like, that's ridiculous, right? I appreciate both ends. But the idea if this can hit 50 miles or 500 miles, there's discussion. He already responded to saying that because of the big tonneau cover, it makes sense they might put an option for solar panels on it that could get you up to 15 miles of range a day, which makes so much sense to me. Therefore, you could go camping in one of these and actually have it out there. And while you're not using it, it maintains its battery life even through cold weather and things like that. So you can get out afterwards. Makes a ton of sense. So I think there's a lot to be known about it coming up. But along with this announcement, which is very polarizing from the perspective of the look and feel of Tesla's entry into the pickup market, another group that released a new electronic vehicle that caused a bit of a stir was Ford, as they have announced their 2021 Mustang Mach-E. And this being their all-electric Mustang badged, basically small form crossover. Another one that people see, hear, feel. Now, I would say a lot sexier than the Tesla truck, but created a bit of a concern for people who are old-time Mustang fans because they were saying, why would you put that Mustang badge on anything that is not a sports car? So, for those who haven't seen the Mach-E, there you go in this display. It has a lot of looks and lines of a Mustang. I actually think the front end looks really good on it. But this was another one that kind of came out and polarized people because people are like, wait, it's a Mustang. What are you talking about it being an all-electric big family car type thing, even if it is somewhat sporty? Now, my thoughts on this one, because it's saying it's starting at $45,000 essentially. Also that it'll have a 300-mile range, which again, I think once you hit 300, you're in a very usable state with an electric vehicle for most people's daily and even some cross-country type of travel. Because for me, 500 miles in a traveling period is about right for extended travel. 300 is kind of on the low end of it, assuming you're driving everything nice. But 500's like, now I feel free and comfortable and I'm not going to get stuck somewhere and really stuck. And this one is interesting because they said they used the Mach E badge, the Mach part of it, because that was the old fastback version of the Mustang that was a little bigger version of the Mustang. It'll go everywhere from the base end of 45 up to a premium end of somewhere around 61 to 62,000. And in that, they're saying that, you know, the base model for them is the one getting 300 miles, which is interesting, where the higher end one, all-wheel drive, is only 270. So you lose a little bit with more power, where for like Tesla, their version of that is they give you a bigger battery to make up for it. But at the same time, all electric, it's saying it's going to have combined sportiness in the GT of about 459 horsepower and 612 foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty sporty for a car. Whereas the less powerful ones is still 255 horse at the low end, and somewhere in the range of, what is it? Up to like 417 foot-pounds of torque. A lot of range in there. So what I liked about this, my own analysis, and I already see, Hando, you're like, why Mustang? No, not cool, don't like it. And Bab's saying like, yeah, but who are you targeting? Dads these days, right? Being able to get because admittedly, that badge, being a Mustang, may polarize, but a powerful electric that's in a premium but not unheard of family car size pricing that looks fun performance wise, also eco-friendly electric with all the kind of amenities you'd want, kind of makes sense in a lot of ways.
Well, you're also thinking of it as a normal car. This is also a Tesla, right? So if you're a dad who's like, I want to get a nice car. I want to get something that's impressive, something that'll make me happy, something that is cool to talk about. I can show off to my friends with, maybe my colleagues, and is functional and et cetera, right? Getting a Tesla is always kind of cool. It's kind of it's a talking point, right? Yeah, it's not just like, oh, you got a BMW, nice, that's a nice car. It's like, oh, you got a Tesla, which kind, right? That's impressive. So I think, I think I think this is going to do extra well just because it's got the like if this came out by BMW or Ford, it wouldn't be nearly as big, I don't think.
Well, no, but this one, so this one being a Ford, right, with the Mustang E, one of the things I am saying to people is that because they called it a Mustang, that tells me that Ford... but because they're doing that with the Mustang, because they're calling it a Mustang, that tells me Ford is behind electric, that they are supportive and they are really going all in. If they had made some new branded version of something and just called it and their electric crossover, that would have been potentially throwaway. Does it work? Does it not? Does it go like a Nissan Leaf or some of these other kind of badges and brands where it's its own little thing, and therefore if it's failing, they can kind of just slough it off? Them as Ford saying this is a Mustang tells me they are really committed to going electric. And that to me is interesting. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but I find that very interesting and very much a potential.
So why do you think they did put the Mustang on it? Is it just to target middle-aged dads, do you think? Is it to target a younger audience? Is it to...
They're trying to, I think, kind of bridge it some because, admittedly, young folks won't necessarily be able to afford this at $45,000 initially, but it's something where it's kind of like, it still, I think, looks good. Because really, once you look at the specs of the Mustang Mach-E, I think everyone saw it and said, I'm totally cool with it. It's a good-looking car. All the performance of it sounds interesting and fun. The biggest reaction I heard is just they saw the Mustang. And people are like, that's not a Mustang. Mustang's a V8. This and that. Even though Ford's already gone to the powered, the EcoBoost V6 in a lot of their Mustangs and stuff like that. So they're already showing that transition. And so for me, this is just really interesting. And so I throw it out there, an era where in the last couple of weeks we've had two major announcements about electric vehicles continuing into the market, saying that this is, to me, mainstream. It is no longer a niche thing, and we're going to start seeing... I already see more Teslas on the road than I ever thought I would. Model 3s are everywhere, and they were discussing what? In Europe
UK
now...
and here.
Yeah, the Tesla 3 has blown up. When I was traveling to Nebraska, Alaska, and I counted probably 7, semi-trucks carrying nothing but Model 3s across the country the other direction. I was just like, what is going on? Holy cow.
Yeah.
More than I saw any other vehicle being transported.
So back to, compared to the Tesla and this new Mustang Ford crossover, what do you think is going to be more? Do you think they're going to compete directly?
No, not at all. They're totally different markets. I think this Mach E is specifically going against the Model Y for Tesla, which is their 7-passenger kind of crossover thing. I think that's the direct market. And I want to say the Model Y, I'd have to look it up again, it starts at a higher range, somewhere in the range of like 60 plus for it. So this is a much less expensive. It's not a Model 3. This kind of is in that niche between price-wise. But performance and what it's offering, I think it is competing against that Model Y versus the Model 3 from Tesla. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot of this Mustang on the road. The other thing is you're going to be able to check these at dealerships everywhere in traditional sense, things like that. It's going to be all over. And so this is going to be really interesting. We'll see. And the other thing, both of them basically come out the same year. So we still have a full calendar year before they're out. But I'll be curious to see what goes forward with it. Also, we've seen things like Porsche has their electric that they've been pushing out there and such. You see a lot of car manufacturers starting to build them. And so, actually, Babs is saying
sports cars.
Well, Babs is saying that the Model Y is basically the same cost, so I think they're in direct competition. So, yeah.
Wow, all right. I think that having an electric sports car makes sense because that's kind of electric car's main thing, right? You can get that speed really, really, really quickly.
Instant
the acceleration's insane. But you can't do that on a. So with vans, etc., and pickups, it also makes sense because one of the most expensive things fuel-wise is taking off, right? The initial movement, because getting that initial inertia is expensive energy-wise.
Very inefficient.
And electric, that's a bit more efficient.
Well, and the other big.
If you have a small company that does pickups around town, if you had 4 or 5 of these cars, or these pickups around, you could just cycle through the 5 of them, let the other one charge, and go do your pickups and save a lot of money on fuel. Although maybe not so much in the U.S., but.
Oh no, it still matters in the U.S. because in other countries this would be a much bigger deal, right? Your fuel costs everywhere but the U.S. is like massive. I talk about that in Australia all the time. They talk about their fuel costs and just like, what? And when I was in the UK and my buddy was driving around his R34 GTR and it cost him basically 100 and something pounds to fill it up. And I was like, that is insane,
yep.
Right? That you're spending 100 pounds plus to fill this up once. Just dumb. But also another piece of that in general is that the overall maintenance cost of electric vehicles sounds like it's significantly less. You have no oil to change, no radiator fluids, any of those kind of things. The only thing you have to do is like windshield washer fluid, and that's it. You're reducing number of moving parts and things to fail. You just have the electric motors for the most part. And
that's
so
true.
It significantly reduces. And when you look at least Tesla, they're talking about, bringing out their, million-mile batteries, the warranties and stuff on some of their things so that you no longer have to worry about some of the cost in those. And there's a lot of discussion about future battery technology, especially some articles I was reading recently about solid-state batteries instead of using liquid-based. And if they can get those set up, you're looking at reducing weight costs because they're looking at going to a type of glass insulate or whatever the piece of it is, the electric, I forget the name of it, but that would be made out of silicon, which is our most dominant resource versus any rare metals. If we can get to those stages, it makes so much sense.
I mean, like if you think over the past 100, when Ford first produced the first car, like 150 years ago, something like that, 130, something like that. If you think back then, the biggest changes in the technology since then, the engine's pretty much always been the same. Yeah, it's improved, it's gotten better, and there's been huge improvements in the efficiency of it and the power behind it and the failure rates and so on, the robustness. But otherwise in the car, it's mainly just the look and the materials made to make it lighter. The safety features came in, but there wasn't anything quite so big and obvious a change as an electric motor. I think that's one of the biggest things we're seeing
pretty
right
massive.
now. Is the biggest change of history of cars for a while now.
Yep. So for me, this has been an exciting couple weeks being a car guy. Very curious to see what this will translate to going forward. I'm in this mixed bag because I'm currently stable with my vehicles, although I have been looking at what a next one might be. I miss my old pickup truck, and so I look at like the Cybertruck from Tesla, and I'm thinking that's compelling and interesting, although bigger a vehicle than I need in my life. But at the same time, I love having an actual bed to carry stuff. The Model E is sporty and neat. It doesn't have quite the carry storage I would want from essentially like I have with my Escape right now. And so I'm kind of in this mixed bag. And I think we'll learn a lot more as we go over the next year or so from the Tesla truck, especially because I saw a bunch of the influencers and people who got to go to the event and saw more details that they didn't talk about on stage. My biggest complaint being they didn't talk about any of the creature comfort, live with this vehicle kind of things that would make it interesting.
That's
and actually where I could
right?
picture, right? They didn't talk about the fact that under the bed, there's additional storage that you can lock away and do. And you saw the lighting, but let's talk about the LED lighting in the bed, things like that. Where if you look at their direct competition to the Tesla truck, the Rivian electric coming out, they did this whole media blitz on it saying, and here's how you might use this truck and why it's so compelling to own. Where Tesla, I think, just kind of said, we're Tesla! It's crazy looking! Rawr! Is kind of my feel on it.
Yeah. Well, it stood for itself, right? That is their main selling point. They didn't have to design it to look like that. They chose to for a reason.
And
right?
and I saw one really interesting analysis, and I forget who it was that said it. It was MB or something that said it. But it was basically that when you're trying to break into a market with some of the most loyal customers in existence, and that being the pickup truck market. I mean, you look, there are very few companies outside of the United States that make successful pickup trucks. And you have diehard owners that will say, I go only Ford Blue or I'm only GM and will not go the other direction. They think anything produced by the competition is garbage. And so there are lifelong owners of those kind of things. To get into a market like that, if Tesla were to have made a truck that just looked like all of the others, but happened to be electric, I think there would have been a lot of people who would have dismissed it. And that was his analysis. They would have just, okay, yeah, it's an electric truck. I don't care. Making something that's so controversial in how it looks, if nothing else, has gotten people's attention and have people talking, which I think is one of those primary things. So we'll see. But I found that quite interesting. And I appreciate the conversation you guys have had in general about, this kind of subject matter. I didn't want to miss this one because it's so recent, it just happened. I want to make sure to bring it up, but I'm also very curious people's thoughts. Plus, because, Ken doesn't have a thing to drive right now, so it's kind of bringing up options, thinking of things, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this, so I could buy one of the brand new Tesla cars. Yeah, absolutely.
You can get yourself an all-wheel drive Model 3 or Model Y.
Don't think I could. Right. So I also had a news article to bring up unless you have anything else you want to say about that.
Oh, I'm totally good. I want to bring it up because, like I said, I'm excited. I'm quietly watching because I did not pre-order. I am in not the market for either one, but I'm curious to see what happens. And maybe second generation.
Plus pre-ordering is evil.
Right. Well, at least with the Tesla one, they said it's $100 to pre-order. And if you say no, they'll give you all your money back. So it's not like you're committed to it or doing a Kickstarter or something.
It's not about that though. It's about Kickstarter is a different story entirely. I think pre-ordering when it comes to an established company is cancer. You are rewarding them for something they haven't produced. Don't do that.
Well, and that's if you get locked in, especially.
Kickstarter is a startup. I get it. Go for it. Fine. It's a risk. But that's your risk, and you can accept that. But don't pre-order from a big company. There's no need for it. They can fund themselves already. So what I want to talk about was this has been pretty big news, and it's been I don't know. It's not as big as we expected it. I think because of the way they've named it more than anything.
Okay.
How many years have we been waiting for the next Half-Life?
True.
Right?
True.
How many years?
Remiss I didn't bring it up.
Have been made about the next Half-Life?
It has been something. Well, it has been one of the jokes and memes that Half-Life 3 is in a perpetual state of doesn't exist, and the idea that. I've jokingly said it's because they made some kind of ridiculous deal or some view into the future that Valve will be successful until the launch of Half-Life 3, and then it'll crash and burn and die. And so that's why they're never going to release that. So yes, we've been talking about it since Half-Life 2.
Yeah, which and the release date of Half-Life 2, there's two episodes, of course, episode 1, episode 2. But initial release was 2004, right? This is and episode 2 was 2007. So that's 12 years ago. And people loved those games. They were so goddamn successful.
Gosh, played the hell out of those.
And they're pretty much the main reason that Steam kicked off as such a successful platform for games. Because
it's definitely why it was known brand.
That's why Valve was trusted to do that, because they were well known as being good game developers.
Yes.
Half-Life is now coming out. A new game called Half-Life Alyx. Not Half-Life 3, Half-Life Alyx. It's coming out March 2020, and what's really special about this is it's full, and you cannot play it with keyboard and mouse, even though it's a PC game, because it's full VR only. And this is the first full VR game that's VR only, and by such a big company, and never mind such an expected and prophesized game as the next Half-Life. So this is a pretty big deal, and the fact that it's entirely VR based is incredibly interesting. Have you seen the trailer, sir? Seen anything about this?
I have seen the trailer, and the basic thing, this is a story that's supposed to take place prior to Half-Life 2. And it is one that's following Alex's story and kind of going into needing to get things prepped for how they would respond to the invasion of, gosh, I forget the name of the actual enemies in Half-Life, the creatures and such. It is all VR based. It looks like it should support everything when it comes to VR, and it's going to potentially be a AAA title that really does push things. Combine, thank you. And so with that in mind, it's interesting because I saw a lot of people respond to it saying, well, now I have to look at VR, where I'm kind of like, I already have VR. And so
I finally have a reason for having VR.
So that's one of those things I'm like,
this. Skyrim VR was kind of tempting, but in the end, I was like, I've already played the crap out of Skyrim. Even if it was in VR, I'd probably play for 20 minutes and then be bored, right? I really needed something that was worthwhile. And that's the biggest problem with VR is it hasn't had that sort of platform product investment of good games coming out of VR that aren't just
a lot of people struggling with the, do I need this one, right? What is my go-to?
Yeah.
Why is my I must buy this kind of thing?
And this is incredibly smart move from Valve. I think any other company, almost any other company, that decided to release a game only for VR would probably fail entirely and be told they're idiots and they just waste money on developing that game. But because this is Half-Life, it's really coming, right? Because this has got such a big, we've been waiting for this for so long. The hype's actually gone down. We've been waiting for it so long. It's just been a crazy long time since the last game that people are willing to go out and buy a new platform entirely, some new hardware, just so they can play this game. I think any other developer would absolutely fail with this because they didn't have that following and that pre-hype, because they're not really selling this game. That's not the purpose of this game. Yeah, they'll sell a bunch, and that's great. The purpose of selling the game is to sell the hardware, right? And this is going to move all their hardware off the shelves.
It'll be interesting, right? Because the challenge is, it sounds like it'll be supportive of all VR, which I think it has to be. If this was a Valve Index exclusive, then I don't think anyone would give a crap. Because the Valve Index is still $1,000 HMD, and to buy that for a single game, untenable. But to be able to still get into it on a $400 HMD and know you've got this whole architecture of all the other ones out there makes sense, right? And it'll be curious to see. I'm excited for it. I think we need to hear more, because really what we basically got out of the announcement is, here's some really pretty graphics that are in the Half-Life world. Here are some VR-based puzzles I saw explored in it and such. Not so much action, but like, I need to manipulate this, and this to get through this door kind of things, which is very much a VR experience. And I think it will likely tell a great narrative, because they've always been good at that in their games. And so I'm down. Can't wait. But like so many things now, and maybe this is Stoicism, I'm sitting back and wanting to know more before I get like on the hype train for it. I'm already pretty sure it's in my, you can actually pre-order it right now for, I think, $6 off the $60 price or something. But I'm not going to do that. That makes no sense. But I will likely get it when it comes out. And so...
Yeah. I don't have any kind of gear available to do that. However, if this is super successful, I think this means several things. And I hope it's successful, because this is going to keep VR running. VR's been dying a death of.
It's not. No. It hasn't been dying. No. Because me following the VR market, I'm watching this all the time.
In the eyes of the consumer,
it has lost
VR has been deemed pointless.
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, they've sold, 2 million PSVR units or something and stuff like that. If you actually look at the whole VR market, it's massive. The challenge is it's just not on everyone's forethought, because not every new game that comes out is VR supportive. And so I will agree it is no longer on this like hype train increase in what is going to happen, but it's not fallen. I think it's just leveled out and is kind of on that slow incline thing where it's still getting more and there's more people buying. It's still out there. And there's some exciting news coming out because if you look at the HMD market, it continues to expand. And we keep hearing that more people are jumping into it. In fact, like Microsoft's even talked about some more AR, VR type mixed reality things that can do both. And there's a lot of stuff still going on. And like Oculus just announced the Oculus Link for the Quest, which allows you to now also wire and this is super compelling, wire through a USB-C Type C, or it's actually a full-on Thunderbolt connection to your PC. It's an additional, I think there's a couple cables that work right now, but for the 15-meter one they'll be producing, it's like $90 an edition. But it allows you to now run it with the basis of your PC doing the processing and it just doing the HMD part. So you're getting essentially both the portability of a Quest where it's standalone, you can do VR anywhere, with the quality of the standard S, where you're getting the computer to do the processing and you're still getting OLED screens. And so there's some things going on that are still really compelling. But you're right. It's no longer like in the media and, oh, my God, VR.
I'm not. I misspoke. The very first thing I said where I said it's dying and it's dead. That's not true. I think comparatively, in the eyes of the consumer, it has been dying because there's not many games that are AAA titles that are out there that you think, oh man, I have to go get a VR. I've never even felt a twinge of that. I've never been compelled whatsoever to go buy a VR. To me, it's like, oh, I've won the lottery. Yeah, I'm going to go buy a VR. I am not going to go out otherwise, right?
So I still think that is all the people who haven't played Beat Saber. You got to play Beat Saber.
It looks cool, and that's the thing. I'd love to go to a geek bar, like a geek club sort of thing, or a night out at a friend's house, and we'd all play together. It sounds awesome fun. I would not buy that for myself. It's not worth the money.
Well, it's the same discussion I have. I'm not going to buy a new piece of hardware for a singular title, right? I have not bought a Switch, even though Breath of the Wild is supposed to be phenomenal, right?
That's
Similar
my
thing,
point, right? I don't think this game is going to make it will sell a lot of VR, absolutely. But that's not where I'm excited. I'm excited with the idea of this rekindling that fire for VR. I hope that this makes developers feel that they can produce good VR games, and this if this game itself is actually good as well, maybe it'll encourage other developers to make games similar to it that are actually enjoyable and of good quality, and not just demos or a single feature. Like if it looks like this game's actually fully fleshed out, it's not just got it's
got to be AAA.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of VR demos out there. They're like, oh yeah, you can pick up a gun, you can reload, and you can shoot. But you're in a blank white room, and you have a crappy, like badly graphical view. It's just not worthwhile. I don't see the point in that. But this looks like a fully fleshed out game where you have all the ability to move items around, you can move yourself around, you can shoot, you can reload, you can really interact with the environment, and I love that. That looks like it's a proper use of VR, and we've been waiting for this for a long time now. I feel like VR was released and first became a thing before we were really able to support it. The tech wasn't quite there, which is fine. I think we may have needed that push to get to the point we are now. Right? I think the initial hype helped, and people buying all the products helped development and research move forward with it. However, it wasn't really worth the average consumer buying until hopefully in the near future now. With this coming out, it might encourage more.
It'll be interesting. If nothing else, I think what you're really going to get is more hype about Half-Life 3. That people are going to be like, now that we got another Half-Life title, Valve, you can't tell me you can't be working on Half-Life 3. Right. Similar to me saying, Blizzard, Warcraft 4, that's the game everybody actually wants.
Hey, Warcraft 3 Reforged it's coming at the end of this year, apparently.
It's recycling the old material, so why not just give us 4? I want Warcraft 4.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you on that part. I'm just saying that I think people are currently not thinking about Warcraft 4, but they will be if 3 is a success.
I think people have never stopped thinking about Warcraft 4. It's just people refuse to hold Blizzard to account about being a company that actually needs to make good stuff. My own rant. Yeah, man. Anyhow. We
have one last thing that we need to talk about before we go off.
Yes, Doctor?
If that's okay. We have an email from Cupcheck.
Snap! I will admit, I did not log into the email today. One of the few times as I was running into other things.
auto forwards to my personal, so I got a little ding telling me. Okay, shall I read this out?
Yes, please do, sir.
So, hey guys, it's been a while, and I'm here to give you an update. On November 17th, I was plucked off a waiting list to play in the Twitch Rivals with 275 other people. And
Nice.
after a 1-3 record, I realized I was playing for a $75,000 prize pool, where you had to get at least 3 wins before 3 loses to get paid, as the money went all the way down to the 168th place. My 1-3 record got me 202nd place. If you are reading this on the 24th, I have been invited to play TBS E-League Showdown for Magic Arena, and the stressful part of this is that every match I play in is a $500 money match. Ooh. If you are reading this December 1st, which we're not, I'll be in the process of recording my matches during the show for the December 4th air date. Yes, the idea of playing a match of Magic for at least $500 is too much pressure for me. I do not recommend if you have a history of stress and mental health issues, because I've lost so much sleep leading up to this thing. Even though the motivation is there, if I lose my match, I'm done. If I win, I keep going until I lose, earning more and more. I'm doing this solely to prove people wrong. For those who say I couldn't win a cent playing a card game, I'm tempted to give every one of them the finger. Wish me the best of luck, Cupcheck.
Hey,
Cupcheck, the thing about these kind of competitions is not about winning the game that you've taken part in. It's about repeatedly taking part in competitions until you do win. So don't put all this pressure onto yourself for the next match, because it's not about that, man. It's about the next 10. It's about the next 100. It's about keep going. It's about the motivation to keep trying. That's where you're going to earn your money.
as I say, I can understand the pressure, especially when it's your first time getting into something with money. It's a similar thing for anyone who goes and sits down at a poker table or a blackjack table. The first time you're actually putting either money out or realize there's a potential to win money, I can understand the nerves kind of bubbling up, the possibility, the anticipation, the want. And I think you're right, Ken, that if you let that kind of go and don't think about it and just enjoy that you're doing it, that you actually meant that next step to go and participate in it, and get past that, and then potentially just keep doing that, at some point you're likely to have success. You know, and that, I guess I could apply that logic if I were to ever try to play League of Legends, Summoner's Rift again. I like ARAMs. Because I understand that kind of pressure and stuff, so yeah. All right. Now, congratulations and good luck, Cupcheck. We hope that you have all the success, more so than even you are ready for.
You can do it, man. We believe in you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Ken, I think we have done a solid extended show this week. Funny because I'm wondering if you being in our time zones now allows you to be less concerned with the going over as much, where normally if we had done this a little bit 15 minutes in, you'd have been like, come on, gotta go. I have to sleep at some point tonight.
Well, normally, yeah, it's the time zone difference, but it's also because I'm here alone, right? I don't have a wife to go.
No dogs, no wife waiting. Yes, I understand.
Right, so I've got very little in the way of responsibilities other than go to work occasionally. So I can do this show for the next 5 hours and be okay if I wanted to.
Welcome to my life, Ken.
Next week will hopefully be a different matter. So I've got one dog arriving on Thursday. Hopefully, Ken features, and the other dog will be arriving on Saturday, but that one's not booked. We have booked the first dog's travel though, so he'll definitely be here on Thursday. Hopefully, Ken will be here on Saturday. So we'll see what happens with the show next week. We may be in the process of just getting back from the airport.
Yes.
So we'll see how that goes.
Luck, much luck. Hopefully, it all works out. And so,
thank you very much.
Can't wait to see Kitten Features in. Can't wait to see you settled more in your new spaces, as well as for us continuing to get your insight into what it is being American. And so,
American and American Features.
Nice. All right, sir. Would you do us the favor of leading us out so that all of you can enjoy the rest of your Sunday today, and potentially join us a little bit for gaming afterwards if you're there? Go ahead, Ken.
Absolutely. You have been listening to ShowX live on twitch.tv/VtWShowX. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We very much appreciate it. You can help us out in so many different ways. You can go to tinyurl.com/ShowXbooks, and that'll take you to the audio book way of supporting our show. Just go to there. That's tinyurl.com/ShowXbooks. and you can sign up for a free audiobook and cancel anytime, and it supports the show, even if you don't pay a cent, and you can cancel before you have to pay, if you so wish. You can check us out all around the internet, reddit.com/r/showx. Every single show is auto-posted there. So you want to have a little chat with Stoicism or whatever, I would go check it out there and have a little comment in the section. I'll definitely respond to you, and hopefully others would too. And be sure to upvote everything you see there as well. That helps us get some exposure too. Send emails to showx@VtWShowX.com if you have anything you want to raise and talk to us about. If you don't want to do the audible thing, but you still want to help us out monetarily, you can do it directly. But you don't get anything really for this other than the warm, fuzzy feeling inside for helping us out. Patreon.com/showx. You can support us with $1 a month or more if you so please. We appreciate that very much. You can check us out on twitter.com/VtWShowX for the Twitter account itself for the show. That's where you get official stuff from. Twitter.com/DocDead for Mr. Wayne's personal Twitter account. And anything that you want to see what Wayne's up to and see what he's talking about, you can see it all there. And you can also find mine twitter.com/drkenreid, as you can see on the right down there, right here on the screen. You can also like us on Facebook, facebook.com, and search for ShowX. You can find us there, no problem. And I think that's pretty much. Also, subscribe to us here on Twitch, of course, and on YouTube. Easy enough to find us. Versus the World videos on YouTube. And as you probably know, twitch.tv/VtWShowX here. Do subscribe, follow, whatever else. I don't know how Twitch works. It confuses me. Thank you very much for listening in. Thank you for hosting today, sir. We appreciate it.
All right, everybody. With that, we're out of here, and have a good start to your week.
Goodbye. See you next zombie.